All right. We are live, gentlemen, to the what I think should personally be called the first annual OMK podcast of three guys, admittedly a name in progress.
Hmm.
I like flipping the chessboard with three guys a lot better.
You see, I like the Bluetooth barrage because it's got alliteration.
Hey, do you want to restart this and I'll
No, it's
anchor
fine.
my? Okay.
Don't do...
Well, I
So,
just dropped the mic on you guys.
yeah, we'll pretend
You ready
he's
for more of
cool.
that?
That's like a meme. All right, well, we've kind of batted around this idea of a podcast before about OMK, though we thought the only people who would listen to it is probably us and like two other people playing at the time. But now that there's actually a community and a lot of like a lot of just entrance into the tournament, even though a lot of people didn't necessarily, place as high as they wanted, I'm sure. I think there's like some genuine interest, in the game now.
Yeah, it
Surprisingly,
seems that way.
Yeah,
thought this was just destined to be so gay for the rest of its life.
Yeah, and it's like for what, 3 to 4 years there, we just were like, okay, we have John, we have Guy, we have Larry, we have Piova, Sol, Pete.
Kyoto didn't even show up very much.
Yeah,
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 he
yeah,
was still there though.
yeah. He was there from time to time, but yeah, definitely not as much. And then there was that I forget, it was the guy from Mexico, I recall. He was getting
Oh,
better.
I played him a lot.
Yeah, he was
I
a
know what
good.
you're talking about.
He was kind of laggy. He wasn't the best, but Anyway, so
That
now that
wasn't
there's,
Zaria, was it?
No, it was like Madara or something.
Oh yeah,
I don't remember
yeah,
his exact
Madara.
name, but well, so now that there seems to be some interest, maybe having, a discussion about our years of OMK and our varied experiences could be entertaining enough to, help some people grind through their day. So,
Hopefully.
well, we'll start with, who we are. And, well, I'm John Horrific. Some people say Jonah. So sometimes I'll put like John with the space so that it's very specifically John. But I digress. Uh, you know, I've been playing OMK for not since the very beginning, because I wasn't really into fighting games when OMK first came out, but I did play a little. Um, so that's kind of how I started. What about you, Guy? How did you get into the game?
Well, I'm Guy, sometimes Guy Senpai, because I've always been the oldest among my group of friends,
Yeah.
except now. But yeah, I loved Umaneko, the visual novel. It was great until episode 6, no, 7.
Uh-oh.
I would actually agree with that. I think 6 is where it started to fall off, but
Yeah,
continue.
but so I was all about OMK
Like,
because I love fighting games. Started with Melty, played Blaze Blue for a while, Guilty Gear, couple other ones. Those are the big ones. So I love OMK. So I've been playing since 1.0, which sucked majorly. Sucked real bad. Rono and Battler is who I played. Weren't barely characters in that game.
is this an explicit podcast?
Yeah. I mean, let's not be too offensive, but fuck shit, bitch, horse, slut. Yeah, it's good. Anyway,
There we go.
what about you, Pete? Hey, we have Guy here playing Rono, and since the very beginning, it sounds like. So,
Yeah,
when did you get into the game? How'd that
very
happen?
beginning.
Oh,
Kind of like
really?
guy. Yeah. So I first got into Umineko through the anime. At the time when I was like in
Yeah,
middle
me too.
school, I thought it was super cool. But then a bit later, I read the visual novel and realized how much the anime just didn't do it justice, and how Dean should probably get put on the cross and burn a little bit for their
Hmm.
decisions made in that anime. But OMK came out, and I thought it was super cool. Fighting game. I wasn't. That's actually my first fighting game I ever played. So I wasn't familiar with the whole fighting game genre, but I was like, hey, fuck it, I'll just download this. Illegally, of course, because I had no money. But now I'm on the straight and narrow. But I started playing it. 1.0, like Guy, I can attest to it sucking quite bad. But I had fun just fighting the AI until like Cross came out. So I was playing against those really, really bad AIs for a very long time. And for like 30 minutes to an hour a day, I would just play arcade mode or, just training mode or regular AI fighting. And I got used to the mechanics of the game just by sheer tenacity.
Well, I think
Also, my name is Beat. Hello, guys. I didn't introduce myself.
yeah, they just have to be like, what's his name? They keep calling him Beat.
Who the
But
fuck is this loser?
I was actually having a discussion with some people um, about like how to start because right now I think there's this real disparity in people and how kind of I hate to use this term good, but we'll say the people who get more wins than other people experienced, right? And it's like if you play against someone and you're like, oh, I'm trying to learn OMK, and I personally play Canon Lucy, right? As you know, and we've all played against each other a lot. We have a familiarity with each other's like styles here, and you know, before I say anything, right? Because I don't want to make any biases or color anyone's view. How would you two describe the way I play Canon and Lucy in like under a minute, right? Like what some key adjectives. How does it feel?
Solid. First word that comes to mind.
Yeah, solid, patient, um, tactical,
I would
always
definitely see
making the
that.
right choices. Yeah,
All right.
very rarely make the wrong choices. When something hits you, it's usually a good guess or one of your rare, like, I'm going to do something that's not always optimal. And then it gets punished instead of working.
I would say that you never see anything flashy from John. Like Lucy and Cannon both have like these really specific, weird, highly advanced combos that if you really wanted to, you could use. They're pretty situational, except for Cannon's. Cannon's is amazing. John, you should do Cannon's advanced combo more.
I should.
But
We
you
should
never
see
see
it.
him do stuff like that. Yeah. But otherwise, well, with what he has, like the simple tools that he uses, he gains a lot of mileage. So if you want to learn how to play the game from anyone, it should be John because he just relies on basics and the core mechanics of OMK to
Yeah,
get the W.
I think that style is like interesting, but the one thing that I actually agree with a lot of what both of you said, but there is one term I would like to add that I think just as the years we've kind of um Jesus Christ,
I'm sorry, dude. Like
just
this mic is really bad. I
uh,
should probably just use a push to talk, but
Nice meme.
fuck me.
uh
I'm
well,
always dropping the mic.
but but as I started to play new players, there's one word I would add that I think maybe the two of you have gotten used to. And not because I'm super good, but just the style of the team and my play style personally is oppressive. Is that the
Hmm.
team feels oppressive. They can
Yeah.
always be in your face. Barring that, they can
Actually,
always choose to be in your face.
yeah. Now that you've said it, I remember distinctly thinking that exact word several times over the years, over the past month, over the past week, even.
Yeah, it's kind of suffocating at times. And as I've started to play new people who I'm like, oh, okay, I'm kind of doing some meaty cannon stuff, a couple. Like I don't rely on too many throws because I think that kind of gives people ways out of your pressure. But sometimes I throw them in, and I get really, assume a punish or a tech or whatever. And it's kind of like a lot of times, like I know against like playing George, a guy, there are times where I'll like give you a really good situation to tech with George against the wall, but then I'll like do a jump C with cannon and then you land and it's like you lead right back to the knockdown. And I kind of like to do little things like that because in the way I play, it's very psychological that I want people to feel as though their options aren't going to work and that they question whether they should do something next time that because when you keep putting people in a vortex, it just kind of starts to think you start to think to yourself, "Oh, I 5B'd last time, but shit, he really beat out that 5B." And it's like, "Oh, I could have 5B'd that time." And you want people to kind of be under that pressure and guess it. And when you make that pressure familiar, anyway, blah blah blah. So I was just thinking about how. that style of play, right? And I'm sure we each have our own styles, is that it can be difficult to kind of know where people need to start to kind of win, right? I mean, like, Guy, let's hear about like some of the teams you play, right? Like, like what's a team that you would say, oh, this is my main team. If I needed to get number one, right? What would I play, right?
Okay. Well, I've played Rono since 1.0, so he's definitely my most familiar character that I'm most comfortable with. But I have altered between partners over the years. But recently, I have sort of resigned myself to the fact of Eric Rono probably being the best team that I will willingly play. You could argue that there are better characters, but I enjoy what Rono adds to, or not Rono, what Erica adds to the team more than those characters. And uh, as much as I dislike Erica herself as a character, her mechanics are at least interesting to me, somewhat. So it probably would be Erica Rono. Um, if you're not familiar, counter hit up plus force counter is a disgusting synergy that allows me to bully people during meta. Um,
Hmm.
it's a very meta heavy team in general, actually.
Yeah, like a lot of those kind of silly, just Erica hits you or knocks you down, or Rono hits you and knocks you down. That's normally kind of anemic. It's like, oh, I knocked him down, I hit him. That can suddenly become, instead of a 300 to 400 hit, we're talking like 800 to 1,000 somewhere in there. And this is not something that stops. It can be very relentless, but situationally with like kind of the team,
Hmm.
that's kind of like some adjectives, right? In terms of like how I would describe it. I would say situationally relentless is the two words that make that team good. And then I think Erica is just defensive slut comes to mind. Overpoweredly defensive slut whore bitch that ruins the game comes to mind because I play Cannon and Lucy and I don't have any other options than to go to her. And with her really good air normals and ability to at least defensively control space, unlike Battler who occasionally will like do something to hit me that I can move around, Erica won't. She'll kind of just run up and I'm like, okay, or she's coming at me from the air. Cannon and Lucy don't have a lot of ways to deal with that. So, that's kind of how I think of that, right? Situationally relentless, unusually defensive. So that's why I think Ken and Lucy struggle. What about you, Beat? How would you describe the Erica Rono team with Guy?
Oh baby, the air. Oh, with Guy. Uh,
No, how do
all
you
right. So what am
describe
I?
the team and the way he plays it against you?
Okay. Um. So the only thing that you have to consider is that I actually play every single character in the game. To a certain extent, I can't play them all perfectly, but I have a general idea of how everyone works and can play them. So Guy will play against me differently depending on who I play. But consistently, I always pick, or always have, consistently pick Burn because Burn is the best.
She is the
Burn
best.
just, it's like, because see, here's some more backstory with me. When I was playing OMK and like starting to get into the multiplayer with these two and others, I had to basically just pick a character that I wanted, like everyone, and I picked Burn. And at the time, no one knew how to play Burn, and it was weird because everyone thought she sucked. But then I picked her up and played her for a couple of months and became the best for a while with Burn.
Hmm.
So
It
yeah,
was it
that
was
was
kind
fun.
of this reign of terror where like Beat like revolutionized what Burn was, and Guy I know especially had some theories about, oh, I think Burn could be really good. This character is going to be broken, and I was
I
like,
said it. The
he did.
moment I saw her,
I
I was
100% confirm this.
yeah, the moment I saw her, I looked at all of her options. I looked at her in training mode, and I was like, "This is very annoying to play. I can tell, but if you mastered it, it would be broken, literally broken, overpowered."
Hmm. Um, so I fiddled around with her and I thought this is an interesting neutral. This jump B seems pretty good. You can air dash and do stuff. She has decent zoning game if you throw out the ground cat, but I I will admit that I was nowhere near as optimistic about Burns' capabilities as Guy was, and I guess beat at some point. So there was the dark time, the reign of terror for 2 or 3 months when you know even back when like we had like Larry playing, and Larry is really good at kind of deducing ways to beat things, and when the situation appears that he knows and has thought of, he gets out of a situation and executes that plan perfectly. So he's very machine-like. I always call him an AI, a robot, because
Hmm.
he's very inhuman in a lot of ways. He doesn't talk, he doesn't show emotion. Today I was kind of egging him on a little, as grown men do, and he just doesn't like even say anything, right? It's just like I suspect he's like an artificial intelligence on a computer, but I digress. But there was that dark age of Burn where no one could beat, but it was just impossible. Like between
Yeah,
like Burns 6B and the cat and Beat's execution that started to really kick off at this point. And it's only gotten better, right?
I thought for a time I thought the Burn Rono matchup was 9-1.
Hmm.
I've
So
since
yeah.
improved my perspective, but
So keep in mind that I could go into every single matchup, but the one I know best is Burns. And Erica. Okay, so let's talk about Rono first because Guy just talked about Rono. Rono versus Burn is extremely difficult for Rono for various reasons, and it's wonderful. I love playing that matchup. But
I'll
when you
bet
think
you do.
about what Burn does, she puts down a ground cat, which basically just stops anyone from going forward into you, which is what you need as Burn because your normals are garbage and have no range. But to compensate for this, dude, I cut the mic. Wow, that was fucking Matrix shit. Let me tell you, I didn't drop the mic there. But
Good shit, good shit.
um, Burn has multiple options she can do behind this cat, and Rono just has to sit here as Burn starts setting up all of her nasty shit. So she puts down her cat, and she can do wizard kitties, 3 wonderful laser beams that travel full screen, um, short hop jump 2C, which is her air Kakera, and 6B, all that good stuff that to anti-air if they jump over. The reason why these moves are so good is because Rono, the main reason, no, the main way Rono gets around Burn shit is either shield or dodging. And in the case of shield, both of those projectiles just completely beat Rono's shield. So you can't use that ever. So I Burn just completely negates one of his moves. It's wonderful. And then for dodge, it's a little tricky because Burn usually puts down the ACAT when she wants to start, being scary and just sit there and
Thing is,
shoot some.
it's like
And
you can't dodge any of that stuff either
yeah,
because you're always at advantage. So she could always just run up and hit you if you're
yeah,
trying to dodge.
because what the first thing about that is ACAT moves very very slowly. So in order for Rono to like get around that, I think he has to hold down his like C dodge, and that's pretty punishable because Burn should just be behind the cat, you know,
Within range.
establishing dominance, gaining Kakeras, throwing out like a few 5Cs, to get him to be a little sort of respectful of you. Because
Making
sometimes,
Rono sad, basically.
yeah. Because what John usually does is like with his big ass normal characters, he'll just run up to the cat and like try and hit me while I'm behind it. But with Rono, not only does he not have like any normals that can go through cat because it's all just feet. It's like he can't really dodge it, he can't shield it, so he just becomes this immobile, sad sack of shit who just gets wailed on by Burn.
Hmm.
Well, it's some flatulent shit, man. So I have to take my penance until I can hit her.
Yeah, man, that's a really good way of putting how that matchup can feel. But I think that is this really speaks to I think the way we all kind of look at OMK, right? Because here I am asking Beat, well, what do you think of Guy? And Beat's like, all right, John, here's 6 minutes of exactly what I think of this matchup, right? And
I haven't
that
even talked about Erica yet.
I know, right? Okay, okay. Quick and dirty, man. 30 seconds. Describe Eric Rono the way Guy plays him, the team.
Okay, so Rono gets shit on, but when Erica comes out, it's sad town for Burn because
Hmm.
no matter what Burn tries to do, Burn will never beat an Erica normal. So Burn will always have to try to jump out, but 5B just goes flying into the air, and Burn can't really jump out reliably. So she kind of has to like not get caught in Erica's pressure, or else she just kind of gets hurt a lot. And then there's also like the neutral game, which is really annoying because Erica's the only character that can double jump with Burn and like position really well defensively and throw out really good normals to prevent Burn from even getting in. So she even relying on like a zoning game too. Erica has like one of the only moves that like just instantly beats any projectile because she just teleports ridiculously far ahead of it.
Okay.
So that matchup's pretty annoying, and especially with counter hit up, that shit is rough, very very rough.
Hmm. All right. So, I mean, let's have some nice buzzwords, right? Let's summarize this down. What are some buzzwords, some adjectives for overall the experience as a whole, not so much by character basis. And I know I think of that way too, depending on what character's on which team and who's on point and how much meter. But what's the overall impression when you see Erica Rono against, like, I don't know, let's say your Burn and or your Cannon and Burn, you know?
Sure.
Like what do you
Um,
what do you think immediately as that matchup starts to like start up?
so what I think of that matchup is basically getting Burn out of Erica immediately and getting Burn in on Rono immediately.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting that dynamic. So I, I I'd say moving on to how we feel, Guy, about the way Beat plays. So I'm curious. Um, we'll just uh, we'll just think. I don't know. Again, you've been doing like Canon and Burn, right? Trying to develop mastery over Canon and Burn, right? Is that fair?
For now, yes.
Okay, so I know Canon's one of the lesser played characters for you, Beat. Maybe that's just because I've done nothing but play Canon forever, but I digress. So we'll go with that. So, Guy, what do you think of,
Hmm.
say, Cannon and Burn?
Um,
Playing against Beat in general, right?
hmm. It's very fast paced. Um, they just come in and they hit me, even though I'm playing Erica and Rono. And it's obviously easier on Erica to be defensive, but with the dash 5B 5C wolf jump, Erica doesn't really have a way out of that. So if I get hit, it's just pressure, you know. Uh, Maybe not quite as oppressive as the Lucy Cannon, but I feel like Cannon in general is an oppressive character in a lot of
Hmm.
situations. He's one of the pressure characters,
He's very
you know.
relentless. That's why I like
Yeah,
him.
all the pressure characters I feel can feel oppressive at times, but Cannon, almost especially, I'd say, at least in terms of the not super top tiers. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
uh, so it's oppressive pressure, but also something that's a bit more subtle is my team is very meter reliant. I rely heavily on the meta and controlling it, and uh, with any team, yes, but especially with that team, Cannon Burn, you begin to feel very drained of your resources. Um, they generate so much meter for themselves that you can't possibly contest them, and they deny you a lot of meter at the same time that it becomes really hard to keep up in terms of resources, and that's a very big struggle I felt in these matches.
Yeah. So an interesting thing for those who, aren't quite as who don't understand all of the abilities to the great detail is that Cannon, he has an ability that I think is really, really easy to underestimate, especially if you're new to OMK or fighting games in general. But
Hmm.
with the way meta declarations work, it's very easy to just like stop someone from being able to initiate, like essentially getting something off of their cancel. And with Cannon's ability and the way OMK works is hitting someone tends to actually give them more meter as an
Hmm.
idea. Even blocking, hitting is actually a little more equal. But essentially, the more life you use or lose, um, outside of blocking, I guess, you tend to gain more meter. And it's not necessarily a comeback mechanic, but if you say do your full combo on someone and look at the meter you have versus the meter they have, you're going to start realizing that they have more meter. So it does sort of dictate a type of flow with the game that you have to consider. And Cannon's ability is one of the few things in the game that can generate, meter. The operative things are essentially Cannon, Virgilia, and he sucks and it doesn't really count. But George, technically, I'd be wrong if I didn't mention George, so you could just not hit George.
Enjoying that patience. An entire block string doesn't generate 1 meter.
Yeah,
I
it's
was I was flabbergasted when that happened to me today.
mhm.
Like he hit me. He hit me with all of his buttons. There were several 2As in there, several 2As. The Rekkas, the attack touch, everything, and I didn't generate a single meter. I was at 1 meter when it started. I was at 1 meter when it ended.
All right.
But
So
it's
so
very interesting strategic dynamic because, like you said, it's not really a comeback mechanic, but it does encourage perhaps releasing pressure earlier than you might feel normally in any other fighting game. Because if you're hitting someone and they're not just, they're just blocking, they're not getting hit, you're not really gaining as much as them. They're gaining advantage, technically. If you guard break them, it's a little bit different, but guard breaking is not generally in most situations, we'll say like 70% of situations, not very scary. There are situations where it is, but I feel like new players especially, tend to overestimate how scary being guard broken is.
definitely.
I, I mean, like, yeah, don't get guard broken against Will with 5 meter, but don't get hit by Will with 5 meter in the first place. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
But yeah. So I found that very interesting as a strategic dynamic that's not really prevalent in a lot of fighting games. The fact that generating or hitting the opponent, blocking, generating pressure is usually just a distinctly advantageous thing for you. But in OMK, it's a bit more balanced. Yeah, you're putting pressure on them, but you're also generating them more resources than you are you. If they turn it around, if they get out of the pressure and hit you on a punish or something, or find the gap, then suddenly you're in a really bad spot.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing about Cannon's ability is that his ability um, basically means that he gets his whoever's hitting. Okay, let's say Cannon has his own ability to just make this real clear, and you're hitting Ronove. The Cannon hitting the Ronove is gaining more meter than the Rono is. Now you might think, well, gee, he's still gaining meter, but no, no, no. You have to understand, it's it's making like that doesn't that seems really shitty because you do a full combo with Cannon with his silent attack, and it's like, well, the other guy is still gaining meter, and it's like, yeah, but he's not gaining as much, right? I think it about
Hmm.
cuts it in half or something. Is that about?
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
about
probably
right.
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, and they buffed it, but yeah, so it
might
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 seem like
even be 60.
it might seem like, oh, okay, that's not very good. But then in the case of Cannon and Lucy, if I get like a nice string and all of a sudden we're both at 1 meter, whenever I bring in my like, alternative person or reserve, then suddenly, you know, they don't really have enough meter to burst, and they may get to 2 meter by the end of the combo, and if they decide to burst, then they have 15 seconds without a partner and 0 meter on point, compared to if I didn't have silent attack, where they have 1, maybe 2 meter and no partner. And there's a huge difference, right? Like between having that 1 meter and being able to meta. So the way Cannon and Burn work, I kind of theorized this with Beat some time ago. I'll take credit and say I thought of it first, but I don't know if that's actually true. I just like to feel good about myself. And with, I said, Beat, I think one of Burn's theoretical best partners is Cannon because Jump 2C Kakera and all the general blocking shenanigans that Burn makes people do, and the fact that Burn stays on point and actually hits people a lot compared to some other characters, with the exception of like Will or Jessica. She's one of the characters that hits people the most. So that immediately thinks, oh, okay, what if you had silent attack on during all that? You generate 2 meter and they generate, 1.8 or whatever. That suddenly is in your favor. Though I don't play Burn as well as Beat does. And I don't know, Beat, do you think that you play Cannon as well as I do? I'm really curious.
I play cannon worse than you, but I do the advanced combo, so I can be better than you situationally.
I'd say if he keeps grinding it out, he's approaching you, John.
Hmm.
It's been a real struggle fighting him these past few weeks.
Also, something specific about cannon. This is a little bit off of a tangent, but I remember when I was fighting Guy like a few days ago, and I was pressuring Erica, and off of a wolf jump, I was able to combo B into A slash in the air. And yet, whenever I try and do that on anyone else, like it never works. Is that actually like a character specific thing for Erica, or
Oh, you only got it to work on Erica?
yeah?
Then yeah, it's probably Erica specific since Erica has such a weird hitbox.
It's so bizarre.
That's really funny. Usually it's in Erica's favor,
Yeah.
but I guess Canon manages to have something that's better than just on Erica.
That's
Well,
odd.
anyway, that was a bit random, but yeah, that's
Mhm.
because stuff like that, I just don't know with canon. So I'll just mess up during those weird moments where it's like, oh, I think this works, but it really doesn't.
It's worth looking into. You might need to like do a different timing.
Yeah.
But if you delay it, then the A slash doesn't hit and it doesn't combo.
Hmm.
So then you may as well just do a deep jump C.
Hmm. Well, I don't know. I'd have to look at it in the lab.
Hmm.
But
Well,
so
well, to kind of give the give the quick summary of the way Beat plays, it is very like Cannon hits you, and then Burn, just kind of runs away and wants to ideally approach you when she has a million Kakeras and a cat on the ground. So, there's an interesting dynamic between the team, but I think that's mostly it. Cannon can may get a hit, but that doesn't necessarily mean that. Unlike some other teams, like if you played, say, Cannon and Virgilia, I say that the onus is really on your Cannon to get a hit and then go into Virgilia to get a stun combo, because that is one thing she does well. If nothing else, the fucking useless bitch. But most other characters, you know, um, like in the case of Burn, I just see that working well. So it's a team with a lot of fluidity. Burn can stay on point. And that's kind of just an interesting thing that ends up happening, I think, the more you play the game is, you know, a lot of teams may not work. And I think this is a good place to start kind of our next topic about, players and how they should start the game, right? Because we're kind of like talking about how we win with our characters here. And, where does someone start winning like matches in multiplayer and OMK? Where does that process start, for example?
well, the number one thing, it's meter resources. Meter
Mm-hmm.
first of all, meta second of all, touch third of all. You could probably make an argument for changing the order around, but that's my opinion, just from my characters.
Oh yeah, those are the three big things, and I think it's really easy to look at the game and just say, "Oh, fighting game. Oh, I out neutraled you and I hit you a couple times. I'm the best, right? Woohoo!" But
Hmm.
you know, there's a big difference between if I land a combo on you with cannon, go into Lucy and get a 2C knockdown. We're looking at like 1.3k damage versus I'm sure as the two of you have known, because you guys sometimes will literally just burst as soon as it happens, and other people have too. But if Cannon gives Lucy 1 meter, hits you for, the typical 1.3 combo, and then Lucy metas, and then, the damage suddenly goes to 2.73k. And that's just from having 1 meter. So you have to really ask yourself, how much am I getting off of doing this earlier attack touch without meter, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's the number one thing I'm going to say I see all players struggle with is maybe they have decent fighting game fundamentals, but it's like, you know, if you like imagine playing Street Fighter as just a real basic example. And let's say Street Fighter, you could go like ABC into Hadoken, right? We'll just pretend Street Fighter is super anime. What if in Street Fighter you could ABC Hadoken, spend 1 meter to cancel, and then do like jump, medium kick, hard kick on Ryu, and then do close B, 2B, 2C, 5C, DP. It's like that's kind of like to really like visualize and think about the difference between how much you get out of your ability. It's a lot,
Mhm.
right? Like you really have to realize that first and
Yeah.
foremost, that
I
one
think,
meter is everything.
yeah, the meter is important. Um, the meta is important. The abilities are situationally important, but situationally very important. So, uh, a lot of people, they come into the game, they see the meta mechanic. It's very um, original, acute. Not really the word I'm looking for, but you don't see a mechanic like that in a lot of other games.
Yeah,
So a
the
lot of
only
people.
sorry to interrupt. I was about to say the only one I can really think of that does that anywhere near is Under Night in Birth
Oh
with the
yeah, yeah,
grid mechanic. Yeah, it's kind of the same idea where it's like someone has to have the advantage of the grid and then they get a cancel.
yeah. They
But
get
in
the
the case of
cancel.
OMK, it's literally your meter. It's not just a separate
Yeah, not
gauge.
a separate resource. I feel
Hmm.
like OMK does it better, to be
Yeah,
honest.
I agree.
To have to have the separate meter kind of dilutes the importance of it, in my
Yeah.
opinion. But yeah, it's they see the mechanic, they're like, oh, it's a cancel, you know. Oh, it's a Roman cancel. It's a an EX cancel. It's whatever. It's another way to extend a combo, add some damage to a hit, or confirm maybe. But that's like the bare minimum of what meta actually means in terms of the game structure as a whole. You know,
What it can
it's
be, that
mm,
that there are certain excuse me, there are certain people who have that. I'm gonna go in and be super aggro and hit motherfuckers, right? But it can be more than that.
mhm. It's a pause button. It's a reversal. It adds frames. Gives you bonus advantage frames.
Activates your
If,
two
if
abilities if you happen to have a
act,
very good synergy with that.
activates your abilities, gives you your meta super, which can change your options or your combo options or your neutral options. Sometimes, uh,
Yeah, it's something
it's
that
huge.
I think from the three things you said, meter, meta, touch. You have your abilities as like the fourth thing. That's where you're gonna start. Like once you get those three things down, and you're like, okay, you know, three people talking about OMK who've apparently played it for 5 years and are making a podcast, and what do I do next, right? What makes OMK unique? That's where you're going to see things with the abilities, and when you look at the numbers. And I think some people more strategically minded kind of start at the ability system, which I appreciate that, and there's nothing wrong with saying or seeing or saying, "Oh, Beatrice, she gives 1 meter. Hey, that's cool. Virgilia, oh man, she can always combo from her level 2 into her meta super. Oh, she gives meter to both Virgilia and to Beatrice. Well, that's extraordinary. Beatrice has these amazing EX moves, right? But it's like, yeah, that's a good place to start. I'm never gonna say that's bad or you're dumb for thinking that. But what I will say is, are you going between your characters? Are you comfortable fighting any other character in the game with your on point Beatrice? When,
Or you're on point for Jilia.
okay, don't mislead people. Virgilia, no, I'm kidding. I have this running gag where fuck Virgilia, she sucks, but that's just like the assumption. Anyway, so yeah, you're on point, Virgilia. Yes, you're correct. You have to be able to handle that situation, and you have to be comfortable enough to find a way to generate that 1 meter, and then make someone either block or get hit by an attack, or like an attack touch mix up something, because you don't want to be getting out having to guard touch and bring someone else in. That costs a meter. It disables your touch, which can be even if you just dash cancel, your touch is an amazing resource for, just adding damage and dash canceling. Some don't need it and are overpowered, like Will, but it still does help no matter what your circumstances, and you'd be silly to not utilize that resource if you can. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when it comes to like abilities, it's all about constructing a team, and constructing a team properly can really add that kind of extra edge, that you might be missing. Uh, I mean, there's a lot of different characters in the game, and some of them work very well with each other, and some unfortunately do not work well with others.
Hmm.
But making a team that has some kind of greater plan is important in the long run. Uh, After you've grasp some of those more basic resource management mechanics and stuff like that. But it's definitely the area that you want to look towards if you're looking to improve. Like, what's some really good synergies off the top of your head, John?
Well, I mean, Beat has one with Cannon Burn. Like I'm sure you also have another. I mean, Burn has a lot here, right? But like,
Hmm.
the first thing that really comes to mind in terms of team synergy, although I like this one because I personally play it a lot, and also, um, it's kind of unique and very specific. But the Cannon and Lucy team is a team that I think at first glance doesn't make a lot of sense. I remember we've kind of had this idea of character types, so to speak. Um,
Hmm.
Not necessarily a grappler, zoner, blah blah blah, but more so this character is pretty fast and good on point and doesn't have super awful matchups. Like Cannon,
I'd say
right?
I'd say we could break down types of characters into three general archetypes here. You have neutral characters who are good at going in, getting the hit, and or controlling the space to the point where they can activate the hit.
Hmm.
Um, you have pressure characters who, once they have the hit, can really lay down, put that oppressive pressure on you, force you to make a mistake and capitalize off it. And you have the damage characters who, once they have obtained the hit, can confirm into the damage that you need to win. Is that a pretty good assessment you'd feel, both of you?
For the most part. I
Yeah.
feel like because
Go
with the
ahead.
damage characters, unfortunately, it's like it's obviously Will and Jessica and Rosa,
And
but
Bernie
like
and Rono
they and Burn and
and
Rona, I
Virgilia.
guess too,
Yeah, there's a
Virgilian.
couple. There's more than it seems at first glance, I feel.
Yeah, but I feel like all those characters do other things as well, other than add-on damage.
Yeah, that's the most interesting part, right? Like, because I was
Hmm.
going to say, let's take two incredibly different theories in terms of doing damage, and I think this works, right? Ken and Lucy versus, I mean, I was going to bring up Ken and Lucy because I love the awesomeness and the just how it just flows. But anyway, so Ken and Lucy. Lucy can be the damage. Lucy also has an ability that allows you just to use the base mechanics for damage, right?
Hmm.
I mean, it's difficult to
She,
necessarily argue that point, right? Like,
yeah, she adds damage in a lot of ways on a lot of teams. Attack touch. Her ability is really interesting due to the way it interacts with the touch mechanics in a unique way. But basically, on a basic level, you can just use it to increase damage on pretty much any team.
hmm
But at the same time, we've come to the conclusion that Lucy's a very strong neutral character. You know, um, and I agree with Beat that those characters do other things, and there's very rarely in OMK I feel where a character is just pigeonholed into this is the one thing that they do. Um, Maybe you could come to mind something like Will. Will is just like I'm going to be the damage guy. That's it. But
yeah, and kind of like average and everything else. It's like, well,
yeah,
he's not going to have a bad neutral game, and he's not going to have a bad pressure game. It's like
yeah.
slightly
But
above average for sure.
he's not better than the specialists.
Hmm.
But I still feel as though you could take any character and be like, well, this is the area that they succeed the most and have the most advantage over other characters. The reason to pick them, so to speak. You know.
Yeah, and all characters will need to perform multiple roles, though the most interesting part of your team setup, you might think, okay, well, at the beginning of the game, right? I think that's a big part of the game. You have to realize that you're starting your game with 0 people and an attacker and a reserve. What's your plan, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's so important and easy to overlook. Is you might think, hey, you know what seems like a really great team? Virgilia Beatrice. So you put Virgilia
Yeah.
on point, and suddenly you realize, oh, you know what happens a lot when there's 0 meter? Jumping around.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually funny. For the longest time, I didn't really consider like who would go on point and who would go in reserve because I just played like a lot of characters. So for the longest time, I would always just play Burn on point.
Yeah.
Just be like, yeah, this is okay.
Mm-hmm.
0 meter burn against Lucy. And, the thing about OMK too is that like sucks is that characters can move before the game begins.
Mm-hmm.
So at the very beginning, you can be anywhere on the screen, and like if the enemy wants to, they can be right next to you and just run at you.
Oh, I'm guilty of
So
this. I'm sure that you guys know, with my cannon and Lucy, sometimes I'll be like, oh, look, I'm right next to you. Just kidding. I super jumped away and starting the match with the neutral tag. Or, oh, no, I'm going to stay right on you, Burn. Like,
Yeah,
right with those 2 A's and really keep you there and be like, oh, fuck, this sucks, you know?
yeah. I've never in my life put Rona on point because that's just not how you do it. That's not how you do it.
hey man, I play Rono on point when I play Burn.
But is he
But yeah,
better? Would it? Oh, okay. Well, see, that's another interesting dynamic, is because you have this man. This character's really awful on point,
with
but then
zero
you look
meter.
at Burn, and it's like, no, no, this character is even worse on point than the other guy. But I want to play both characters for whatever reason. So it's like you
Mm.
have a very bad, I guess you could call it like start to the game. A very bad
Mm-hmm.
0-0, 0-0, 0-0. We could come up with some cool term for like the start of the game. But
Bad opener.
yeah, like your opener is slow with that team.
Yeah. Because ideally, right, in that team, you'd want Burn to be on point because you always want Rono to get the 1 meter before you tag and get into the meta super so you can get even more meter. But
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, the reality of the situation is that Burn doesn't really start being good until she starts setting up, and she can't set up at the beginning of the game, unfortunately. So you have to get someone to like just hold on until you get that meter and let Burn in.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting
But
too.
Rono is. I was about to continue. Rono is serviceable in that regard because if someone gets on him and like pressuring him, he has guard kick and like 2C and all that good shit in the neutral.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I know that the difference in playing against Rono on point versus when he has a meter, it's vastly just huge. Like I know there's been times where I sometimes get the better of your Rono with like my cannon and Lucy beat. When you have Rono on point, there'll be times where maybe you run in with that 6C and Lucy's there to give you the 2B and you're like, oh, okay. Well, you win this time, you bastard. And it's like sometimes you just have to accept that. And when I see a lot of people basically bursting, they're like, no, no, I'm out of here. This is Blaze Blue. This is Guilty Gear. They're like they're right. They're mashing that burst as soon as they have that 2 meter, and it's like, well, hey, before you spend those resources to get out of your damage, let's think about what situation you want to be in after this is done, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, I think that that's all well and good, but yeah, the
You know,
team structure, it's interesting. I was just gonna say real quick between just the 2 people I'm speaking with, Beat, who prefers that Rono on point as kind of a neutral character that is weaker, and Guy, who's like, no, no, I'd never want to play that neutral Rono, right?
with
I'm
zero meter.
yeah, this is the starter Rono, right? Whereas
0 meter Rono is, Rono is a great character, top tier even. But Rono with 0 meter, if and if you go and hit them or they hit you and they get the meter before you, then it's even worse when the enemy has meter but you don't as Rono. Ugh, terrible feeling.
hmm so that's just like the interesting dynamic that I think Beat probably just has the opinion Rono is a good character and he deals with the things that Burn can't. And B
Mhm.
probably, I assume, also holds the opinion, right? Well, I like having Burn whenever I'm set up, and Rono can get me there. So it's like those two just kind of go together. They give each other a lot of meter with the way they play the game. Rono can meta hog a lot better with Burn. You know,
Hmm.
against like Rono's like, I really hate fighting zoners, and Burns like, I beat every single zoner in the game, 8-2, if they try to outzone me. Like,
Yeah, it's a
and
good team.
yeah, and Burn says, by Jove, I really fucking hate when Cannon and Lucy just start jumping on me and hitting me. And Rono's like, this isn't the greatest situation, but I got this 6C and this 2C and this parry and this 5B. Let's guard kick, so they have to slow down their pressure. It doesn't necessarily get him out of it, right? But it's a hell of a lot better than Burn, that's for sure, right? So
Mhm.
it's kind of funny how that team works out. Even though you don't necessarily look at them, I mean, we do because we played the game for 5 years against each other and know the effectiveness of everything at a glance. But a person who's just looking and thinking about theoretical values and ascribing value to, oh, well, where's the synergy? This isn't Beatrice Virgilia where I just do level 2 and get a ton of meter and have a bunch of stuff. It's different, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, it's definitely, you know, that is a really good example, Vito Virgilia, because the numbers are there. That team should be mathematically a good choice. And, anything is possible if you're a god, as the saying goes. But it's just you get into those situations, especially against good players, double, especially against good characters, where you
yeah,
realize
I like that.
no matter no matter how many resources you have, there are situations where you're going to be at disadvantage, a significant one sometimes. So even though resources are important, very important, number one priority, at the same time, you have to be able to apply those resources in a meaningful manner that gives you advantage.
Yeah, that is interesting because we were just saying earlier like, oh, you can't just play fighting game. You have to look at the resources, but you also have to, look at abilities. But you can't just look at one or the other. You still have to be able to play a fighting game, but you should also still have some general strategy, to what you're
Mm,
doing and why it functions. Or you could
mm,
just suck and like spam jump C all the time, and John can't punish you because he's playing in zero delay instead of three. But the general purpose is still there, right? That's
yep,
my shot at Piova there. And the purpose is that Beatrice and Delano are with Piova's team. You know, Delano has a really good level too. You can always tack on the EX grab if you get the meta. It's just like okay, that's enough, right? Like
it's a lot of damage.
you don't have to make a super crazy team that has all this intricacy in it and look at like how to apply and or how to get meter and allow your opponent to not have meter and always try to end your combos, like in my case with Kennen and Lucy, optimizing for like silent attack combos and meta declares and trying to get double attack touch combos under certain circumstances. It's just, well, yeah, it's great, but you don't have to do that. Uh, there
Mm,
was someone today in the uh, Discord. I'm actually going to find it. He was talking about like, oh, what sort of stuff should I use for my team? You know,
mm,
and it was
Sort of
interesting.
stuff.
Uh,
Elaborate on that.
Oh, yeah, I guess you weren't here for it. So I'll go to we can say this the Q&A section, right? There's a guy basically talking about, he said, I've been having trouble narrowing down who I want to play as. Who would make a good partner for Virgilia? So he sees his Virgilia, he likes it, right? How do I make that work? That's a good way to think. Someone with a strong neutral who can build meter for her at the start? Question mark. And I was feeling real fired up after the tournament. And I just like fucking type out this thing, and I didn't really intend for it to be as long as it was, but it was. And I was like, well, for me, Virgilia, Cannon, silent attack, all those Virgilia hits, that's good. Extra meter for Cannon and meta declaring to get out of situations with his meta. Cannon can also level 2 by himself if you happen to just get a Cannon with 5 meter. Battler is pretty solid. Lucy, I think I can make Lucy work with anyone, so that might be a bit of a bias. And Beatrice, as we mentioned. And I was going on and on about all of this stuff, like how this could work. And I was essentially saying, he comes along and says, well, what about Erica or Angie? Because I think he probably had an idea. Oh, I want to play Erica
Hmm.
and Angie in Virgilia, but does this suck? And I go and say, Cannon Battler, Lucy Beatrice. And he's like, well, what about these two? And I'm like, well, Angie is kind of hard to make work all the time. Virgilia already kind of stuns, so you don't even necessarily get a lot out of that. I mean, I think we can all agree that Angie's very lackluster, but even putting that aside, just the synergy overall. And
It's decent because I guess with that team it would work pretty well, and especially like Lawnmower and stuff. They get a lot of weird stray hits with their big normals, but commonly they
yeah,
can't really
yeah,
like get anything off of it.
yeah,
So
that's a good
if
point.
anyone, that's like Virgilia is one of the characters you'd probably want to play NJ with.
I guess, yeah,
Build
I'm
up
more
the stun.
thinking about like after you get the hit with Anji, what are you gonna do? But in
Hmm.
terms of like picking up random things with Virgilia, that does function. But
It
as I
might
was,
work more as a Erica Rono kind of situation where you put yourself in a good situation with meta on, and then discourage them from pressing buttons.
oh yeah,
But but at the same time, Virgilia doesn't exactly have the kind of mix-up that that team does, so
hmm.
And it's just
still a bit
lockdown.
weaker.
Well, to kind of finish up my point about what I was saying before with this specific team, right? Was I didn't really, I mean, this is what I think about, but in terms of, I said I think Battler is a better choice than Erica because they're kind of the same character, right? In my totally official tier list that I wrote, um, I, I put Erica and Battler. I have this top tier, right? And then I have this not top tier, but also better than everyone else tier, and it just has Erica and the two Battlers. And it goes to show that I think Erica and Battler are fundamentally the same character, but obviously they have different abilities. So
Yeah.
with like Virgilia, for example, she has this ability that sit there, gain advantage. Battler, sit there, gain advantage. And I think, well, instead of that Erica, why don't you think about Battler, right? Like you
Hmm.
want a
Yeah, I
strong
don't
neutral
think.
game?
Yeah, Virgilia wouldn't really. The only thing I could see Virgilia getting off of Erica's ability is like her dive kick, because like her dive kick really hits people a lot, but like you can't get anything off of it. But with counter hit, always, then you can get an air combo off of it and confirm into metas all the time.
Yeah.
But
Well,
that's really all I can think of.
I definitely agree with Battler and Erica being the same character. I feel like I
Mhm.
said that a couple of years ago. I
Hmm.
like feel like yeah, I feel like we had that conversation, and I've said that.
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is, after a while, we've shared ideas for like 5 years, guys. Anyone listening, that it's kind of hard to like differentiate now. We both are, we'll all kind of come to a conclusion, share ideas. Ideas, mutate and then permeate once they become solidified, and we're all kind of accept like, oh yeah, that seems good. Maybe we have difference of taste or opinion, but usually there's like some general concepts. But and I basically just told this person, no, okay, hey, Erica's not going to do much, and if you get like a situation like an EXDP with Battler, or a knockdown with Battler, or just a DP in general mid screen, you always have that option to neutral to Virgilia. Like let's say you have a lot of gray life, right? Let's say you have like 1,000 gray life. Well, get rid of
Mhm.
that, get that 50% off of your guard meter, because neutral tagging gets rid of 50% of whatever your current guard break is. And then put down that A circle mid screen, backdash with Virgilia, sit there, get life, and be on your circle mid screen. To me, that's
Yeah.
just like an immediately like, hey, this is good. And if the other person that you're playing against just says, well, I'm going to neutral tag, then you neutral tag with Virgilia. Then,
Hmm.
if they're not going to approach you, then yeah, some people will just sit there. Like I know you beat are very fond of sitting right behind your Virgilia circle, especially against like Rono or characters with less threat. Um, and you can always trigger the EX. I call it mine, but circle. Just trigger the EX mine and blow someone up and get something off of it. But I just feel that that's more beneficial overall than, oh well, you could. Some people can play Battler. Oh, I'm gonna DP. I'm gonna run in and then like 3B him, 5B him, throw out a tie and overhead or whatever, right? So I just think that, man, if you really want to play Virgilia, you should play to her strengths and not just pick another character, right? Like, what does
Mhm.
Virgilia do well? Brimfall, she's a good damage dealer. She's a she's a decent zoner when she gets a circle. I'll say that much. But that's all
Dude,
I get
goats
from
are
her.
amazing. And 5B, 2B,
Yes,
poking people with that shit is great.
I probably rambled on too much about this, but yeah. So that's just what I was saying to this guy. Like, that's what you should consider. Like, yeah, anyone can. You could obviously just attack after Battler, but you can also do these other things. And if you're just going to attack, then that's kind of what Erica does. But then if you're playing like Erica, why are you playing Virgilia, right? If you want to,
Yeah, I agree.
if you want a character that you're gonna like go in after you hit people, then why are you playing Virgilia?
Hmm.
It doesn't make sense to me. Battler's universal, Erica's universal, but they still have things that they're going to go better with. And that's kind of like team structure that, like what you were saying, Guy, getting that extra edge, finding something that functions for you, something that works and makes your team have something that no other team can have, right? Because anyone can just
Mm.
play fighting game fundamentals and do stuff, but you want to get that team. You want to
You
get
got to
something.
find a team that fits your play style, that has a strategy that works, that allows you to, be comfortable with how you like to play, you know?
Hmm.
Because, I mean, Virgilia is a good damage character. Nobody could refute that. But after that option, after she's managed to do damage, dump some meter into a combo or whatever it is that she's doing for damage, what's the situation after that?
Waking up into magic seal and goats.
Yeah, that's about
Yeah.
as good as it gets. Kind of like meaty, and it's not oppressive pressure, right? It's
Mhm.
just like, well, here's some kind of annoying pressure. If you're really dumb and get hit by a lot more of it, I'm gonna get another 1 or 2K damage for more meter. But maybe I should have waved that or saved that meter for someone else. That's the way I always think of Virgilia. Kind of why I don't have a great opinion of her.
Yeah.
It all depends on what you think her strengths are. Mine are personally, hey, this ability is amazing, one of the best in the game. I want to
You know,
utilize this ability as much as possible when I see it, right?
not not to go on too much of a tangent, but the topic that I would like to broach now, thinking about it after that, it's very interesting because we speaking of us three, uh, played on 3 rounds, best of three, um,
Hmm. Hmm.
with 3 bars, so all the life, and with the desyncs and the net play being what it is, I've been playing a lot of 1 round. The tournament was 1 round, best of three. It's very interesting how the game changes like that,
Oh
and I've
yeah.
been finding, in my opinion, just the theoretical side, which is what I'm usually known for. It's very interesting to me to see how the strategic dynamic changes and certain characters where that's kind of where their thing is like they can put a lot of meter into a combo and do damage. It's a lot more powerful in these
Hmm.
1 round matches.
That's why I don't like it.
George, George, Virgilia, Will, obviously, even Burn, who can just
Beatrice.
dump, yeah, Burn, Beatrice, who can just dump meter into a combo until they're out. They become significantly more powerful. It's very
So
interesting.
that's why I don't like 1 round. Because literally, like every time I've played 1 round, it seems like instead of thinking about what you want to use your meter for, every time you have meter, you want to use that for a combo. Who cares about like anything else when you can just kill someone in like 2 combos?
Hmm.
Yeah,
If you play
it's
those
an
characters, that
Yeah.
is. But yeah, I understand.
it's a subject I want to broach with the greater community as a whole because after playing these things, I kind of do get the feeling, that 3 bars, 2 rounds is a little too long. But 2 bars is obviously the game's not designed for that.
Hmm.
Some characters become way too powerful. But, even 2 bars, 2 rounds is just kind of too quick, in my opinion. So it's, I feel like as a community, we should look and discuss whether you want to stay with the 1 round or go with the 2 rounds. I mean, the 1 round is the OG, in fucking vanilla OMK 1.0. But didn't they only add the round timers in cross, or it's been so long I don't remember
Round
what.
timers?
Yeah,
Not the timers,
all those
the
settings came around
counters.
in Cross. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, which is interesting. But yeah, the one bar or 1 round, 3 bars, or the 3 bars, 2 rounds. It
Yeah,
could
because
definitely get a little slow,
I mean,
but
original OMK, you had to win 2 rounds, right?
uh,
Like I remember that now, because I remember thinking, wow, this is weird that you can just play one less round.
hmm,
And I thought, wow,
maybe.
this is really weird that you can play not only one less round, but 33% of the life gone. Like what?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
it
think
could
I
be.
think it's been that way since point one or 1.0 because I remember like playing a lot of arcade mode and hearing like secondo movimento and intermedio and stuff like that.
Yeah. So there
Mm,
used to be no choice to play with one round.
yeah.
And I think that eventually people were like, "Oh man, if you're playing OMK and you win one round and then the opponent wins another and then you're like fighting it out and it's like, man, this is like a fucking match of like a MOBA, dude. It's been like 10 or 15 minutes, you know? Like holy shit. Now this was like an experience. Like holy shit.
Hmm.
So yeah, I understand what you mean though. I like the strategic layer that comes with longer term conflict where
Hmm.
you're rewarded for saying, "Hey, I'm playing canon." And I'm always going to bring this up, right? Because it's the best view I can think of. But I like the reward of not using all of my resources with, say, Kennen and Lucy and outplaying someone. It's like, oh,
Hmm.
well, now you start the next round because your meta timer transfers over, your meter transfers over, and the waiting state of your partner transfers over.
Yeah, it's definitely less snowbally. Um, More chances of a comeback, of course, the longer the games are. But yeah, I also enjoy the strategic element. But at the same time, it can feel a little bit longer, especially with the teams that don't necessarily have the best damage conversions. You know.
Yeah, but I think the even though that is a problem, I think it's a way bigger problem when you look at one win or one round is the win, right? And then you look at
Hmm.
Rosa, Will, Jessica, Byrne, Delanor, like suddenly those characters just become this like, oh, I can beat your ass on your on point character, right? But then this character comes in and maybe blows all of that meter on a hit, and then it's like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, well, you know, the dynamic is suddenly like losing is almost better in some ways. Like because
Yeah.
you get that meter and then you get to like kind of throw it out there and then the other person has no chance to really retaliate, right?
Hmm.
It's like this very basic sequence of I attack you, I win, you get resource, you attack me, I lose round, and instead of having like, all right, well here's round two, where the circumstances are always different, right? Like round two is never going to be round one.
Hmm.
Round one is the triple zero, right?
Right.
And round two is, do I have my partner? Have I bursted? Who has more meter? Where am I on the screen? Or not necessarily screen, but where is the match going to start? What character do I have on point? Because you don't always get to choose who you want on point, right?
Hmm.
You know, where's my meta timer? And that's interesting. That's really
It,
interesting.
it's definitely more interesting, in my opinion. Um, I mean, yeah, like we've always played with 2 rounds, so best of three or whatever you want to call it. So it's definitely, and I think we did that because we found it more interesting.
That's
But
why I always did it. When I
Hmm.
tried playing with like Soul and Larry with one round, I never liked it.
it would be interesting just to see, and maybe it's a little early for this, but it would be interesting to see the greater community's opinion on something like that. You know,
Hmm.
if we could get some, comments on it uh, in the Discord or wherever, have some people's opinion on that because I would be interested in hearing that just from a theoretical perspective.
Yeah, I guess my thing is the biggest problem that I see with not that we should invalidate the opinions of others, but let's say you're starting, you're playing against a guy who's been playing OMK for 5 years. Do you really want to play 2 rounds against them?
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
you kind of get stomped the first one. Maybe they even have more meter than you, which is really difficult to do in OMK. But like, let's say you bursted a couple times and didn't get anything out of it. You don't have a
Yeah.
partner, you don't have meta, you don't have meter, and like Virgilia's on point against a powerful neutral character like Battler or Kennen or Lucy or Evatrice or Rosa.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's
mm.
Yeah, it's definitely happened this week since release. Tried doing a couple 3-round games, and it just got into that situation. People don't understand how to control meta properly, which is understandable. But you just win the first round, and then sometimes I would be looking at 4 meter on my point character and 5 meter on my reserve, and they would have maybe 1 or 2 on both of their characters. And it's a tough situation. It's not fun, to be blunt. Nobody wants to be there.
It forces you to outplay. Like it's almost like it reminds me of like guerrilla warfare. I know I've talked to Beaten Guy about like some of my history here with other games, but I kind of played in a game called Ragnarok Online, and again, not to derail, but essentially I played in smaller groups, and the only way you can succeed in smaller groups in that game is guerrilla warfare. And that's just what we did. We moved as a small, very cohesive unit, hitting things and doing very well with it, with team cohesion over numbers, getting in and out. And I feel that that's the kind of feeling I get whenever someone's overpowering me. And I even suspect, like, I, I notice myself having comebacks against a lot of people. Even in my matches today with, like, Larry and Piova, who were the people who got number one and two um, in the
Soul got
tournament.
number 2.
Oh, did he? I thought. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Soul number two. Excuse me. It's funny how Soul got number two and he's not very good, but whatever. Um,
Um,
anyway,
Shots
he'll
fired.
take it in good faith. I know he will. But um, yeah,
He
with
doesn't
those,
play as much as us.
yeah, exactly. That's really it. With those two people, I had some good comebacks. Piova especially. I like probably had maybe like 200 or 300 life. And I was playing Cannon and Lucy, and Piova has like 3 bars of fucking life, and I'm like, uh, you know, like, fuck,
Yeah,
dude, fuck, this is gonna be so horrible. And,
you're in for a grind, a slog, if you will.
but I think that that situation is okay because I won that match. I fucking
Yeah,
won it, dude. Like,
I feel
it's
it
it's
does teach you really quickly.
it's the dynamic of the game, right? It's like just because you're against a dude who's like 100 pounds more than you know, it's like, well, okay, I'm obviously not gonna like wrestle or grapple this dude, right? But at the very least, maybe if I'm smaller and quicker, I can get something done, right? Like, there's just that
Hmm.
aspect to the game that you don't see in the other situations. Like, it's such a travesty, in my opinion, that you see someone like who's Larry, who just plays like the single player game of setups. There's no interaction, right? It's just one round, get your good setups in, and that's that. I mean,
Hmm.
obviously he wins, but I personally think he's winning because I rolled back into a lot of his jump will 2Cs. He's still good though. He's probably better than me in my current form. But I digress. I just think that,
this isn't even my final form.
well, I just mean I'm not as good as I used to be. I don't practice, my hands
Yeah.
and neuropathy and stuff. It's just I can't like I used to, sadly. But yeah, I think that removing those interesting elements to the game, I guess you could say situationally, okay, maybe that's just your taste. Like I think if I were playing against someone that we both kind of understand, hey, look, you're the better person here. Let's just play and see how it goes. I just want to practice this kind of specific thing real quick. I'm like, okay, but even then, I think that only works for people because I don't play like Larry, right? I don't play
Mhm.
Will, where I just murder you off of one touch and a few like, good sequences of neutral exchange. I don't know. I just don't think that's a fun way to play the game.
Yeah, well, some people like games like that, just grinding it out. I
That's why
think,
a lot of anime fighters are popular.
yeah, I think it's a very strange tactic to go for in this game. Um, Definitely possible, but to do something like that, Yeah, it gives up a lot of the interesting tidbits of the game, I feel. And while it may be good, uh, and this is just my gut instinct, I'd have to really think about it. But while that is good, Will is good, Burn good, Jessica more Will and Jessica, I suppose in this instance, grinding out those combos, it's really good. Uh, is it better than making a team that's functional and has good synergy and having a grand strategy that you know gives you a definitive advantage
In one round, it is.
in one round? Maybe.
My
Mhm.
immediate thoughts are that not only is that a really good strategy in one round, I think, because of the nature of just needing to, you know, bust your nut in fucking 2 minutes, like it's that same theory, right? Like just kill
Mm,
someone. And it's like,
just
well,
kill someone.
even if I don't necessarily get the win, now all of a sudden you're at your last bar at 50%. All I need
Mm,
is like one sequence to beat you.
get to the point where it's like I have such a health advantage I can keep trading and eventually I'll have advantage from that.
Yeah. And the other point that immediately jumps out to me is that Jessica and Will are the two best characters in the game already. This
Yeah.
makes that better, right? Like they're already amazing, but you play with this rule set of just win one round. Suddenly it's like, oh wow, now the best characters in the game that, I think we can all kind of agree between Jessica and Will, and then the situational Burn and Rono, and then in my opinion, Ava, situationally, though, all three of those. But Jessica and Will are always going to be good in any
Yeah.
circumstance. But then you put them in a circumstance where getting the life bar low only one time is what you need. Fuck, man, even Jessica and Will can just do some cheeky little overhead or land a 2C or have done some dumb setup, right? To get a little more damage.
Yeah. Uh, hmm. Discussing the tier lists, specifically the top tiers, something I have been thinking about lately this past week or so. Because there have been a lot of Jessicas. Beat plays Jessica sometimes, but other than that, don't really get too much of an opportunity to fight against her. And it could just be my team, could just be my defensive play style in general, but uh, I have not been having too much of trouble against Jessica um, as my team. Um,
I think your team does pretty well against her.
yeah, but even when I'm playing my secondary team, Rosa George and stuff like that, I just been noticing a lot more gaps in Jessica's armor than I used to. Um,
They are
I
there,
would
yeah.
say the biggest one is that in zero delay, you can actually parry touch your 2C, which is great.
yeah,
That's
there's
very
definitely that.
important.
But especially in her neutral game, I've been feeling less threatened, and you know, she's def. I'm not. I'm never gonna say it's bad, especially when she has charge. But I feel like there are ways around it. 6C is pretty stupid because it's basically Rono 6C, but slightly worse. But she gets way more damage off of it without meter. But 6C is pretty rough. But other than 6C, which means you got to fight her on the ground, again, that's like her turf. But at the same time, I'm going into these matches, I'm looking at, oh, she's got the 5B, she's got the 5C, she's got the confirm of that from any range. That's scary. That's powerful. But at the same time, I feel like there are ranges here for a lot of characters, not just the ones that I've been playing, where they can, put some pressure on her and stop her from just doing whatever she wants. And I haven't fought a lot of wills, so you know, I've been interested to see if maybe I could feel the same about him. But at the same time,
I think
he's
Will's neutral game is much better than Jessica's.
yeah. At the same time, I'm looking at the numbers and past experience, and I'm like, Will super jump 2C is just how are you going to beat that without Rona 6C or Jessica 6C or something equally as good?
Or really precise spacing.
Hmm. It's yeah, it's difficult, but like I said, I would be interested in some more matchup experience there, some more varied matchup experience as well.
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
Hmm. Well, I mean, Jessica's just capable of a
J-
lot.
yeah, Jessica, it's like yeah, she's in one of those situations where I don't think she's ever really disadvantaged, but I feel like she has situations where she's neutral, you know?
Hmm.
Um, and it's definitely still top tier for sure.
I think it's
She's
just
stupid in a
because
lot of ways.
she can get so much.
Hmm.
Like even though she's kind of average, she doesn't struggle per se anywhere. It's
Yeah,
like
her rewards are huge, for
exactly
no resources.
for
That's
nothing.
definitely her strength.
And then it's like if you compound that with any sort of, oh, I've kind of already winning and now Jessica's here. It's like, uh-oh.
Hmm.
Maybe
Yeah.
maybe you're just in like the kind of alpha strike where you have the start of the match, the 0-0, the 0-0, right? I
Hmm.
really like that. Um, the 0-0, it's like, well, if you alpha strike better than Jessica, you're right. You do just kind of see this average to above average character.
Yeah.
And maybe Jessica is also a character that, unless she gets a decent alpha strike, does have that kind of
A
problem with
lot
the
of
one round.
people, yeah, a lot of people feel strongly about her neutral, at least to the point of putting her on point, I've seen at the
Hey guys,
start of
I'm
a
gonna be
round.
right back. Don't miss me, okay?
Oh, okay. Enjoy.
Enjoy
Um,
what?
whatever you're doing.
You don't
Uh,
know me.
I see a lot of people put a lot of strength or faith maybe in her neutral to the point where they put her on the point with 0 meter. And that's definitely one of those situations where it's like, if you get something, it's good, but getting that something is very difficult for her, I feel, in a lot of ways. She could become very desperate uh, like that. And, if you put up the wall, you could see her running into it and failing. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. It's tough because to me, Jessica just feels like that, like you said, if you put her in a place of advantage, she gets so much reward that it's very easy for her to snowball out of control. So I feel like she's more of a reserve character, to be honest. Put someone that's really good at neutral, really good at getting the pressure, really good at getting a single hit. Lucy, Souls Lucy, Jessica. It's surprisingly scary, you know. Um,
I mean, I don't think so because I play a lot of neutral characters that are on par, and it becomes like a very
mm,
extreme skill matchup.
yeah,
Because like,
I mean,
Cannon, Battler, Lucy all fighting each other. I guess Erica. Well, Erica beats them. But I think that those are like skill matchups. So,
yeah, but I think even having a skill matchup is an advantage for a character because when you're in that kind of skill matchup, it's more likely for people to make mistakes and be able to capitalize on it. So,
I mean, if you have the skill, yeah, it's totally an
yeah.
advantage. That's how I feel.
Also,
Like,
I'm back. Hey guys.
like
Hello.
I never feel afraid of another Cannon or Lucy, ever,
Hmm.
because they are only as good as you make them.
Yeah,
They don't
definitely.
particularly get anything for free. That's like, here's my one good thing, you know? It's like
Hmm.
you have to put this culmination of tools together. And not to say that culmination is bad, but you have to put it together. You're never going to be like, here's my Jessica 2C, here's my 6C, here's my 10 million damage combo because I hit you with the charge, right?
Hmm.
And but yeah, I haven't necessarily felt that sting against Soul
Mm.
because again, it's like Lucy, okay, here we go. I'm comfortable with this, right? Like,
Yeah.
and then
Well,
if
I wouldn't
anything,
say. Go ahead.
I was going to say, if anything, because he's relying so heavily on Lucy to get it started, that team feels incredibly anemic to me when I face it.
Oh yeah.
Because, like I said, I mean, I think Soul and I accept this. We've had this discussion about how, well, you know, John's just played Lucy. It's really hard to mirror John to death with Lucy, right? Not
Yeah.
impossible. It doesn't mean he doesn't like get the better of me, but it's just harder. Like I couldn't outburn Beat. I couldn't outwill um, the robot. And that's just how it is playing against Larry. So I think that there's just kind of a specific hurdle where because I'm always going to construct one of my teams usually with one of those very good neutral fight anyone and get the first hit, that I'm just never quite at that same disadvantage that someone else might be. And it's kind of interesting because I never really thought about it, but yeah,
Well,
I
yeah, a
guess.
mirror match is always going to be a skill-based matchup, so
Mhm.
it's definitely I could see that. But I mean, not just Lucy, any good neutral character, I feel would be a really good partner with Jessica. Because if you get the hit and then tag into Jessica, all of a sudden there's not this period of vulnerability. There's not this, area where she's like trying to get a charge and you can threaten that. There's not this, maybe I have to spend a charge to get in. There's nothing of that. She's just in your face with a charge. Eat it.
Eat this!
Mhm.
Exactly.
Come on.
So
What's the
definitely.
follow up?
Well, what do you
What
think,
even
Beat, about Jessica? You know, where she stands. Like, what about that? I mean,
Just
you play every character. I mean, it's what you said. It's what you claimed.
so like in terms of tiers, like what kind of topic are we on?
I basically said that lately against um because I've had more matchup experience against better people, or not better people, different people is what I was looking for. With Jessica, I have been feeling not quite as threatened by her. Not that she's still, not good or anything like that, but um, I've definitely seen more chinks in her armor than previously.
Hmm. I still think she's good beyond that. Like having the fastest backdash in the game is wonderful for me. I love that.
Oh
The
yeah.
5B5C really good, as
Beat
we
never
previously
misses a
mentioned.
backdash, by the way. So compared to me and Guy, Beat's a keyboard player, so
Mm,
he's like tap tap, and it's like, wow, Beat just never misses one. That's really great. I wish I could do that. Anyway, I'm sorry.
yeah.
Continue.
Yeah. And the fact that she has like two wake up options or lanes, hate how I have to run up to Jessica and guess if she's going to do a low or a mid and vuln wake up. It's the most annoying shit.
Yeah, if you play a character that doesn't just have kind of a way to get around that, is really annoying.
Mm.
Mhm.
It's a very good reversal. I just, I pray to Lucy every night, and I think, thank you, Lucy, for having a good jump 2C or jump C that crosses up on Jessica, because then she
Mhm.
just leans back and gets counter hit, and I get to hit her, and then she's always going Jessica, because I 2A 2B her, and every fucking Jessica just like bursts immediately, and I'm like, huh. Oh, and then with Cannon too. Every time you knock her down, and she's like, Cannon kun. And I'm like, suffer, you bitch, suffer. Anyway, but I don't remember what we were talking about. I was a little emboldened there. My apologies.
Uh,
Well,
The reversal, right? The reversal. And how
yeah.
yeah, that
to
shit's
be able to.
annoying. And okay, so beyond that, she has amazing meter lift damage, already touched upon. But you guys didn't touch on her guard break potential, which also just adds to the complete bullshit that is Jessica. If you have half your guard meter, you can just say goodbye to it because she'll just mash EX, uh, fucking JoJo punch, and just
Hmm.
guard break you, and it's annoying. You can't fucking
You do utilize guard break a
touch it.
lot more than Guy and I do. That's for sure.
That's a good topic. With the zero delay, I've found that guard crush is a more prevalent issue. Previously, in the older versions net play, guard break was very rarely an issue for pretty much anybody, in my experience. Sometimes it came up, maybe if you were specifically looking for it, but it was hard to block things, and it was harder to punish, like jump outs and various escapes and scrambles. So there were a lot more situations where people were getting out, and a lot fewer situations where people were scared to get out and just blocked instead. Whereas in the new net play, when it works, it's a lot easier to block those, and to get into those situations. I found myself getting guard broken significantly more often, and I've come to the conclusion that guard breaking is not very scary on most characters and in most situations. If you're going to lose because of it, or if there's some kind of ulterior situation, specifically maybe like there's a character that can continue to negate your touch meter or something, Rosa or George or something like that. And, tangentially, maybe guarantee a stun off of a guard break. That's dangerous for sure. But other than that, it's like if you're blocking, you're generating a lot of meter, assuming you're not fighting cannon. Uh, if you get guard broken, you're taking a scaled damage. You're still generating a lot of meter for yourself, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to get knocked down. You're going to get put into another situation that's bad for you. But at the same time, if you try and make a scramble and you get fucked up, then they're going to hit you. They might knock you down. They might put you in the exact same situation and force you to guard break anyway. They may even be able to confirm into an even better situation.
Yeah.
It's very.
Sorry.
Mhm. I was just going to say it's very scary, and I feel like people. It's a very human instinct to be scared of being guard broken. Like,
Yeah.
oh no, I don't want to guard too much because I'm going to get hit. I'm going to take damage. I'm going to be at disadvantage. But at the same time, you have to realize that building those resources and taking a scaled damage combo and then putting yourself into a wake up situation where things are, more in your favor of being able to find a way out is better than trying to, induce a scramble and betting on them not being able to pick it up or something similar, some kind of wild and crazy idea like that.
Yeah, Guy didn't mention it, but once you get guard broken, it actually is significantly harder to get guard broken after being guard broken the first time.
That's true.
Yeah.
Every guard break increases your guard meter. So, even that is another incentive, to not be scared of guard break, in my opinion, because every time it's going to be harder. And if they waste those opportunities too early, then, it stops even becoming a real option for a lot of characters.
Yeah, I have this problem.
One thing I'd like to hold that thought, okay, B. I just want to say something for new players that's really important is that neutral tagging reduces your current guard gauge by 50.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I want to say. That's why I do it a lot.
That's more than the other versions of tagging, by the way.
Yep.
Yeah, other versions of tagging reduce it by less. Attack touches like 30 or 20% or something.
25.
Yeah, 25.
Anyway.
And damage touch, same thing, I think. I'm not sure the exact values for all of them, but yeah, they're all different.
Yeah. Anyway, I just want that to kind of be known because I think neutral tagging, while not always a good thing to utilize, like with Cannon and Lucy, I think that's a big strength to them. If you want to play, pants on head retarded, go in and do stuff characters, you're better off with really aggro Evatrice and Will. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there because that really struck out to me, a chord in how to utilize potential stuff. Anyway, go on, Beat. I know you had something to say.
Yeah. So what was I talking about? We're talking about guard break. Can you actually refresh on what was going on there?
Unfortunately,
I was speaking.
No, good.
I was speaking about how guard break is not as scary. And
yeah. Okay. I was going to mention that I suffer from this problem quite a bit because I fucking hate it when people take put me on the defense and I'm not the one applying pressure. So I make it a point, even if it's probably just better for me to get guard broken, I don't like it. I don't like giving them the satisfaction of knowing that they pressured me long enough to guard break me.
Yo, Guy, remember our conversation the other day?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, John pretty much said the exact same thing that you just said. It's
Yeah,
very interesting,
Exact same thing, huh?
but almost word for
Talking
word,
behind my back, huh?
honestly.
I see how it is.
It's kind of scary, actually, how well John knows you. Apparently,
Hmm.
maybe are you sure he hasn't been like stalking you? Have you been checking your windows?
Yeah, I looking out there. There's only like some creepy, like, 50-year-old guy out there. It's not a big deal.
yeah.
Okay.
50. Okay, we're good. I'm not 50. I don't even look like I'm 50.
Yeah. No, that's
Well,
fine.
yeah, it was just funny because the other day I like went on this crazy like self-reflective rant of the kind of person I am and human being people are based on how they play OMK.
It was very enlightening.
And I didn't necessarily mean it to be as in-depth, but I learned a lot about myself.
There
What
you
about
have it,
me?
folks.
And
No,
then,
I'm interested. Keep going.
okay,
Okay, this is a spiritual awakening. You heard it here first.
okay. So I forget exactly how it came up, Guy, but it was something related to like mindsets and winning, or
Hmm.
I know that's where it went, but
Um, uh, you were talking about the way we play. I guess because I think we were discussing something similar
what's a crazy
before Beat
option
left.
with rogue?
Yeah.
That's what you said.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is an interesting, admittedly tangential thing, but I guess that's what podcasts are for, right? Okay, so I basically said we have this interesting set of players where on one side I think you have the more guy focused. He's very based on setup. A kind of what did I say? It's a calm something. Oh, I had some
Calm and
Google.
methodical.
Yeah, a methodical calmness to
Hmm.
the way guy plays. And in the other corner, maybe to like the two people who played us, if Piova and Larry listened to this, though Larry, he wouldn't get any good data, from listening to us. Not worth storing in his RAM. But I don't think there's too many people who played us, so I kind of have to contextualize this. But yeah, that's how Guy plays essentially. I think they disagreed. They chime in, and Beat is akin to I say a mad animal. Guy says it's a little better to call it a wild animal, where it's like a wild animal is it's just always growling at you and looking to fucking bite your head off, right? Like
Hmm.
any opportunity, it seems like it can, that you expose your neck, you'll just
Go for it.
yeah,
Go
it
for that
will.
jugular.
Yeah, and it's like sometimes you can kind of stop that, but a lot of times you can't. It's just the unpredictability, right? And when cornered, a wild animal is afraid. And I
Hmm.
actually said, like, I really wish we were recording yesterday's conversation because I was like, beats beat beneath his exterior of confidence and wild animal is actually afraid. He doesn't want to be powerless. He doesn't want to be guard broken. He doesn't want to block. He doesn't want to have to sit there and respect what you're doing. Like he doesn't
Hmm.
want that. That's just like for
Never.
whatever
Just
Sign
reason.
of
the way he
weakness.
is.
Yeah, it's sign of weakness. It's like he has to be the mad animal, right? And when you put a mad animal in the corner, it does something fucking crazy, right? Like that's always the thing they say. When animals feel they have no choice, that's when you get the crazy shit. And that's what Beat
Hmm.
does, right? Like Beat's not 100% crazy, right? But whenever you can get Beat to like have that kind of passive aggressive bully him into the corner with his burn, he knows that burn reversal won't work, but he still does it sometimes. He knows that I am doing the meaty 2A, but he still holds jump. I've had Beat hold jump against me in the corner 5 times. Holds jump, hit him with the 2A. Because I'm playing Lucy, I can't confirm. Jumps again, 2A. Jumps again, 2A. Jumps again, 2A. And I was like, wow. And then like the last one was like an EX reversal, I think. So it was like 3 or 4 times. And then when I 2A and clashed his reversal and started comboing him, he fucking bursts. That's insane. Like tell me that is not a wild animal, right? Like can you imagine if you like had some wild dog or whatever, some stray feral animal in your house and you just like pick up a stick or like a glass or a fucking fork and you're just like get out of here. Get out of here. And he's like he just bites at you. You're growling, get the fuck out of here. You're trying to get him to the door. He runs to the corner. You're like, hey, leave the fucking house. And then you start approaching him, right? And you're like, You go towards him, you try and stab him with that fork. He's like, rah! He just dives on you, and you're like, kick him off of you, and he just keeps diving on you because you've cornered him, and all he sees is red. That's Beat. And
See.
he just, I realized that Beat doesn't like to not have control of the situation, at least in some form.
Mm-hmm.
And I basically had this conversation with Guy too, where it's like, well, in a way, that does kind of it puts Beat into this more like he has a 70% chance of being a crazy animal and a 30% chance of not. Whereas I think Guy is the opposite. He has the 60 or 70% chance to take the calm option and the 30% chance to be the wild animal.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest situation that the sequence that we've had play out is I'll be pressuring the difference between pressuring Beats Rono versus pressuring Guy's Rono with Lucy is with Guy, I will 2A, 2B, and sometimes Guy will 2C me.
Mm-hmm.
Admittedly, sometimes Beat does, but a lot of times Beat will almost always 2C me or 6C me. That's just the difference between the two. Even though if you run up in 6C, it's very possible that Lucy's 2B will beat that sequence. But that's because Guy likes to go for the 2C, which is the good, well, Lucy's good on the ground. I'll use my good normal to beat her on the ground. And then she'll block it, or she'll get hit, or we'll trade. Very calm, very methodical, very, if you just look at it on paper, that's the ideal way to win. If Lucy jumps back, who gives a fuck? If she backdashes, who gives a fuck? Well, maybe she'll punish it. I don't know. Depends. But when you look at beat, it's Lucy's 2-8 and 2-beat me. Well, sometimes Lucy jumps at me. Sometimes Lucy does an overhead. 6C. Okay, he gave me a second. Now I'm going to 2C him. I'm out, like, Beat loves going for the run up 6C. Or he'll jump at me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whereas Guy doesn't necessarily do that because those are riskier options. Like a trip guard, the run up 6C will lose to 2B. So the way I approach these two is very different. Guy, I tend to be, I'll kind of stop a little more. But I also sometimes push a little more. And I tend to go into that 60-40 where I'm more likely to be crazy against Guy than I am against Beat. So because Guy likes to challenge me with this ground game, I'll do like the jump in with Lucy jump C. I'll overhead over the 2C. That doesn't work against Beat as well. With Beat, it's much more about there's been so many times. I remember I said this exact thing last night. And you brought this up, Beat. I hope this is intriguing to you, right? But with your Rono Beat, because you like that 60 option so much more, a lot of times I'll 2A, 2B, wait a second, because you love trying to meta parry. Because you don't want to be in my Lucy pressure. You're like, fuck you, John. You're not dictating the pace of this. I might have blocked your fucking 2B, but I'm going to run right up to you and hit you. I'm going to meta. I'm going to jump at you, right? So often you'll run up and do that 6C, and I do 2A, 2B, wait a second for the meta parry, and then 2B again. And so often you're doing that run up 6C into attack touch, and you just burst. It just looks really funny if you to those who don't know what's going on, because it's like Rono's blocking, 2A, 2B, run up, 6C, burst. And it's like, why did he do that? It's like, well, no, he was trying to go 6C into attack touch into his burn to stun me for 10 million damage. And if it works, it's amazing, right? If I was doing a different option or being calmer, then yeah, for sure. But I often find myself, in the case of Beat, I just kind of don't do anything and end up blocking whatever he's doing for a bit. Whereas that's
Mm-hmm.
less frequent with Guy. So that was just kind of our little in joke between friends here about how people, how everyone kind of plays differently. And I personally kind of find myself in this middle ground of I want to be as unreadable as poker face as possible, right? I have this 50-50 mentality, though I tend to err on a little bit more of a side of caution, but it also depends on who I'm playing. Like for
I
example,
remember.
Larry's
I,
kind of calm. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
well, I remember. I was just gonna say I remember how it started the conversation because we were playing a couple games and you got a little frustrated at the zero delay because you're not used to it, and you told me about your mentality about how you go into every match trying, expecting to win, is what you said,
Hmm.
and that's how the conversation started, and we started talking about play styles and mentalities. So just some context.
Ah, yeah. I never really had thought about it either. I mean, geez, I feel like I'm talking about myself too much, but I I've
Well, we could share our mentalities.
yeah.
So that's what John thinks. I'll say what I said yesterday about how I don't go into every match thinking I'm going to win. I I look at my skill and I look at what I know of my opponent's skill and I calculate, you know, what are my odds of winning, because I think that there's a chance to win in every match, right? Like there's a way to win every match, I feel, but I just have to find it. Um, and John said that that made sense because of how calm and methodical I am.
Mhm.
But yeah. So beat. What do you
Yeah.
think when you go into a match?
I
How?
really want to know.
What's your thought about victory and achieving it?
Winning is achieved through initiative.
The
He who is in
decisive.
the face of the other the most
Say
will
that again.
all.
You cut out. Can you please say that again? I need to
Oh,
hear this.
I said a victory is achieved to those who take the initiative.
Mm,
Like, if, see, I do this shit a lot. If I'm in the air and like someone hits me, like Lucy's just like, "Oh, I'm gonna jump beat you, bitch," and then we both land and we're neutral. Like, I feel like 5 times so basically half the time I'll just EX reversal because you're right next to me and probably going to meaty me afterwards, because why wouldn't you? So, because like if you let the other person take the upper hand, then that just leaves you more vulnerable to just getting hit by more stuff. So I always try and take the, even if without a meter advantage, if I play very aggressively and try and open them up.
Beat ascribes to the Alexei Suvorov doctrine,
The hoo
uh,
ha ha.
a Russian general in Napoleon's time. Uh, he was a firm believer in the bayonet charge. Even in such an era of advanced guns, he would always say, "All right, I'm going to find my opportunity to have a bayonet charge and tell my men to fucking go and do it." Is the decisive type.
Yeah. Once you've made a decision and once you've decided, like, because like with burn, especially, like, you can't stay in that position for very long. You really can't, because your character isn't really designed to take that, because you can't just like Badler DP or meterless reversal your way out. You can only jump and try and get
Man,
shit out. But even after you
yeah.
jump and get out, if they see that, they can still come after you. So you have to get a little creative with like how you try and get them off of you. If you just sit there and block a lot, it's not going to happen. So
Okay, so let's think about how you'd respond to that situation, guy. And I'm gonna say something that immediately really jumps out to me here.
Mm,
So Beat says like in that situation, I don't have a built-in reversal. I don't have a meterless reversal.
mm-hmm.
But
What's the situation?
just like, Lucy jump bees you when you land or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my incentive is I'm gonna try to do a safe meaty. Even if it's Lambda who gets plus and will always punish it, I don't care. I'll just always
Mm.
do the safe meaty because
So
against
are we
most
speaking? What option are we doing as Beat, or what option are we doing as Lucy?
as beat, what are you doing, right?
Mm,
So in that kind of situation, when I play burn, I think to myself, and this is how I always think about it. I'm thinking I have to kill this guy. Where's the normal that fucks him, right? Like
mm,
everything he does has to have a weakness. What do I need to do to get out of this? I'm sure you guys have like seen this. And obviously I play characters that this works with, right? Like I know Guy, you sometimes will like do jump charge C's at me and I'll just like 5A you with Lucy, right? And it's like,
mm,
oh, okay. And it's like I didn't like stomp you, right? It was by no means some really powerful move. I still took your shit, right? You might have hit me with a couple other things before I found that, but I have that hit to disrupt what you're doing. That's kind of the way I see it. Like to just make you feel like, oh, you think you're better in this situation, but this is how I'm gonna get out. And I might run up and I might do like a fake meaty. I might run up and then block, because that kind of initiative where you have to decide two things with Cannon and Lucy in the specific situation where you're hit and land and then you're knocked down and in that disadvantaged situation. So I guess that's what I'm kind of thinking, to be more specific. What do you do in that disadvantaged situation? And for me, it's poke out with a normal, because once you hit someone out of the air, and you could either run up and block, or you can run up and hit them, or you can run up and like throw. Occasionally, you do like a mix up or a meaty, right?
Hmm.
So for me, that's always like, how do I disrupt your flow and make you think about what I'm doing? Not necessarily to the same extreme as beat, but I'm more like, you know,
I love disrupting people's flow.
like if
Reading
we,
people's flow and like just making them stop and get them flustered is amazing. See, another situation with that. Sorry to interrupt, but like
sure.
if you notice me fighting against like you or Guy a lot as Burn, when you have Karas in the corner, you can 3B and like just hit them. And even though you're not plus afterwards because the recovery sucks, it just interrupts them and like just opens them up for just a split second. So if they're like still trying to combo you and like get flustered, that's like your chance to get in.
Yeah, it's like it's scrambling, dude. It's like, again, it's like the wild animal, just like really quick, just going forward and trying to bite you, right? Like
Hmm.
I guess
It is
that's
a strange option
it is, and
because
he does it. It's crazy, but
yeah,
yeah,
I mean it's just like I would do 6B because well it's plus on block, it launches on anti-air, it's a projectile so it doesn't go away if you get hit. So in a trade you still win.
It does have startup though,
It does, but yeah, like I don't know. I feel like it'd be hard to poke out of.
if I
I
were
don't think
Burn,
I would
for
poke out
sure.
of it. Yeah.
I would jump 2C and run.
I do that sometimes, but that the that's like the other way to like disrupt them because like that comes out pretty much instantly, and you're in the air, so like immediately your immediate reaction to that as the opponent of Burn is to block high, but then she immediately just goes back down to the ground and hits you low. So that's another good one. But you do have to jump out there, and it's a little harder, I guess.
Right.
6B
Because
is
like
pretty
instead
good.
of just holding down back and then just going forward, it's like you're holding down back and you're trying to jump out, and it's like, oh geez, it's a little more risky.
I think that's
Yeah.
why don't play Burn as well as you do, because I just have this killer instinct of I need to land the big awesome ground combo, and I have to out neutral you, right? Like on the ground, like a fucking man. I'm like this. I can't even think of like an allegory, but it's just like this honorable knight who's like has his shield and sword up, or like a shield and mace and heavy armor. Like, all right, let's fucking do this, bitch. Like, one
John
of
is
us is
a
gonna
And
clobber
then I
someone, right?
brought like a fucking cannon, and I'm like, oh hey, how's it going?
I see, John. No, John, you're more like a honorable samurai. Well, we must engage in one-on-one combat.
Little did you know, Burn brought some friends.
Yeah, Burn is like the fucking peasant with a matchlock, and he just shoots you, and you're like dishonorable.
Reminds you of that Indiana Jones scene, the guy with the sword.
Yeah, yeah. Where he just shoots them. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I feel like I almost never lose when I get people into that situation, though. You know,
Yeah. Hmm.
I'm like, I understand how this is gonna work, and I guess that's probably why people avoid it so much. And I'm also playing characters that do it really well.
Hmm.
Hmm. It's interesting.
Yeah, you see, if I get hit out of the air by Jump B, I would land and I would block, and then I would see how they react. And then next time, maybe I would do something different.
Hmm.
Maybe I'd go for a jump. Maybe I'd hold jump towards them with a normal or a wave for like mid screen.
Sensical, man. Like you can't complain. You can't argue with that. Other than the fact that it's so sensical that, you know,
You have to get a read on your opponent first.
Yeah, yeah. What if they're poker face 50-50 though? What do you do then?
Bet it all on black, I guess.
Mm,
What can you do?
yeah. I mean, that's why I do
Fold.
ascribe to the poker face mentality. But it's fucking annoying when Larry just teleports Will jump super 2C shit, just sitting there waiting for his dumbass to do something in trip guard when he just mid screen with the jump 2C. I'm like, oh, okay, great, good job, Larry.
Hmm.
But that's the net play, not Larry. Larry's cool. Which I don't think he's really cool. I have no opinion about Larry. I digress.
Well, hey, to go off of to follow a topic that we were on earlier regarding characters and tier lists, I would like to continue that George conversation that we were having.
When George talks.
What
Uh,
No, we
about George House? George House is the only thing about George that matters.
George House.
yeah.
To those uninitiated to the ritual, George House is where you pick a George and any other character, probably a high life character like Rono, but you can pick any other character, and you simply one-on-one duel with George. No partners, no touching, no meta, because you can't get meter on for your on point character, right? And George House, you just fight each other with George on point. And even though George sucks, because you're fighting George, it's okay. It's an ancient tradition. I don't know how it started. I never particularly partook in it, but
No, I think I'm the
George
one who
House.
started George House. I just started playing George by himself and just kept losing, but I had so much fun.
Well,
well, fuck man.
uh, anyway, our conversation, I don't think Beat was here for it. So maybe we'll start from the beginning. But,
Good idea.
George has been somewhat of a pet project for me for a while. Um, and I played George against these guys for like basically a year almost. I don't know the exact time, of course, because I don't really keep track. But I played George against these guys for a long time, and we had all pretty much universally, for various reasons, come to the conclusion that George basically sucks. I think we can all agree that that's our conclusion.
Uh,
Um,
well, just real quick, as a caveat, so my specific tier list is absolute top and absolute bottom. And I don't think George is absolute bottom, but he is one above it, for what it's worth.
yeah, it's better than Shannon.
Andrew.
Probably.
Yeah, better than Shannon and Andre, but tied with Bunny and Virgilia. So anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think we can agree that he's lackluster, to say the least.
I've felt so as well, but I've always enjoyed rushdown characters, although it doesn't really fit my playstyle. And frame traps, I love frame traps. So mix-ups are fun too. Everybody loves a good mix-up. So I've enjoyed playing him, um, and I've been playing him a lot. I've always said since I've started playing him that George is basically like the beginners, like the gatehouse into OMK, right? If you don't know how the inner workings of OMK work, then George as a character will just roll all over you. He will just completely stomp you. He'll just keep hitting you. He'll just do like a lot of damage for no real meter, and he'll just stomp you completely. But once you understand the more fine mechanics behind OMK and the subtleties of the way that the game plays out, you start to realize that George is very easy to deal with, and you know, in most circumstances, I'll preface, uh, and you can start really just kind of calling him out on a lot of his magic shenanigans here. So I've been playing a lot of George against some of the newer players, and just more people in general because I have a lot of fun playing George, and I've noticed that a lot of people have a lot of trouble with George, um, and it's very understandable to see why. Even if you do have experience in the game, he does have a couple decent gimmicks, that can be tricky. They're very fast. if you're not looking for them specifically, they can be a little hard to react to. Um, but it's very curious to me, um, and I wanted to talk about maybe why we consider George so weak, and kind of examine it in terms of on the whole. You know, it's an interesting character study that I think we can segue into other characters perhaps at some other time, um, and a good way because I think that the George is a point of contention for a lot of players. On whether or not he's good.
Here, John, you can answer this question for now. I've been drinking some beer, so I got this fucking piss machine over here, so I'll be right back again.
Hmm.
Cracking back a couple brewskis.
Oh
I wish
yeah,
I had one.
21st birthday.
It's unusual.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But anyway, I'll be right back.
Oh man. Okay, guy. So you said a lot of stuff, and I have a lot of opinions about all of it.
Hmm.
So you want to talk about why we consider him weak,
Hmm.
essentially.
Hmm. Just overall, uh, what about his strategy? What about his situation specifically? Matchups. What exactly? Where are the weak points that are so damning?
Okay. So I don't necessarily think that I like to push the extremes to start. So we'll go there because it's easier to kind of start at one end of a spectrum and go to the other.
Hmm. Hmm.
So the immediate kind of, I have the Ken and Lucy bar, so to speak. And I think, how good is this character compared to Canon and Lucy on neutral? That's like where I start. So, when I see George with my characters, the first thing I really think about is, how does this man threaten me? How does he get the hit? Like let's say again, extreme circumstance. You're playing Virgilia or George Virgilia. Virgilia is not going to really get too many hits by herself. The big confirm by herself. So how is George going to do that if George really needs to put in the work? And how is he going to fight me? Cannon, Lucy, 000, start a match. Nothing. He has nothing. Absolutely
Hmm.
nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
The best he can hope for is to jump at me.
Hmm.
And beyond
Jump.
that, maybe get in and get me because he's not gonna like super poke me harder than I poke him, and like I'm never gonna just be like, oh wow, he just ran up and two beat me. Jeez, wow, gosh, you know, that's never gonna
Hmm.
happen. But the
Never.
most I think George will do is I'm maybe staying on the ground and he jumps at me.
Hmm.
Maybe after a poke, George makes me block, and then I
Hmm.
think, okay, from here George is 2B2C 2B2C,
Hmm.
and what happens from there, guy? Anything?
I've been messing with some stuff, but it's not looking promising.
Mm.
And the worst
Alternate block strings.
and the worst part is 2B2C, hold jump after the 2C. Suddenly
Hmm.
George just whips to 2B. You're far away from him. George doesn't have a
Minus
very fast ground game, but I can neutral.
17 recovery.
Oh, well. Yeah, so there's that. And then there's also the option that I jump away from him. And with Ken, because of the way I construct my team, this is a personal thing. If you end up constructing if you have very fast moving, okay. So Ken and Lucy, fast moving team and incredible neutral tag synergy between each other. Just pointing that out. This isn't applicable for all teams. You might have Beatrice Virgilia. Just because Beatrice neutral tags into Virgilia doesn't mean that Virgilia suddenly comes in and is a god. But Cannon or Lucy come in. They both have options to delay their neutral tag or to reposition their neutral. Cannon with the slashes, Lucy with her drills. So, things to consider. This team specifically, I can always run away and neutral. And then Now George is like really gonna be sad because if I out neutral you with Lucy, cannon to Lucy, silent attack, suddenly your George doesn't have any meter, and some moves that you're already having to block are gonna give you a lot less to, because at the very least there's always that respite of I'm blocking, this isn't good, at least my reserve is getting meter, keep it together, right? I think we've all had to tell ourselves that sometime, even you beat,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
where that's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, all right, it's fine. If I get guard broken, okay, whatever. So that takes that away. And it's like, well, now George kind of has to poke out or find a way out of this pressure character. And unless he's against the wall with his dive kick, there's not a lot of good options here. Because even anything that Cannon does, if he does wolf jump off of a C, I think it's pretty tight for George to get out anyway. And if Cannon just ends with 5B and George throws out his shitty 5B and then Cannon just re 5Bs into 5C, it's a confirm, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to beat that character unless you do jump CB. If you get into a nice situation
Yeah.
where jump CB is like making people block, you're a little,
George doesn't even have a 4 frame 5A. His
well,
close
No,
one is 6 frames.
he just becomes a DJ.
Wicka wicka.
I could see that though, dude. But okay, so that's the canon matchup in a nutshell. The Lucy one is okay. Now you have this character with an even better normal for fucking you on the ground. But at the very least, that gives you a few more options to like jump C her. But because she's crouching, it's unlikely that you're gonna get like a jump CB combo. So then suddenly it's like George has to do late jump C to combo you as Lucy. And
Mm-hmm.
what does George add to his partner? At with a jump in, jump C, 2A, 2B, maybe 5B, 5C,
Mm-hmm.
maybe.
If you're right next to him.
Yeah, if you're absolutely right next to him,
Mm-hmm.
you're more likely not at an ideal position to combo Lucy. You might go over her head. You're probably further away if you're playing against me, though you may get a couple hits on me. Though if you're at perfect jump distance, I'm probably just blocking what you're doing. And then you have the cannon, 2B, 2C. Hold jump after 2C. Sometimes don't hold jump after 2C because sometimes George does his little fucking axe kick, heel drop kick, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, you knocked me down. Oh, you're gonna roll. I guess this is the best part of your character, you know? And even if George just somehow, again, like I said, comes in with the jump C, A, 2A, 2B, 5C into his partner, what did you really add to your partner, George? What have you done for anyone? You selfish prick. Like, you're not adding anything to anyone's team. Like, I'm just gonna go through the character list here real quick. What does George add to Rosa?
Well, I could talk about that. It's a very silly team, but
Does he add anything more than any other character on the cast?
probably not more than Will. You know.
Hmm. Angie? Well, Angie might be able to stun now, but she probably already is stunning most people anyway who land anything. Battler? Does he add damage to Battler? Does he add to Battler's extraordinary neutral game? Does he help with that relentless pursuit that I so love and endear with Cannon and Lucy and to some degree Battler? No. Does he have a good ability? No. Beatrice? I guess he uses her level 2, just one saving grace. Lucy? Why do I want a George when I can have some other good neutral character, some other good damage character? George isn't good at neutral and he isn't good at damage.
He's he's okay at damage, but there's definitely better characters.
Okay, so I'll give you that. He's okay, but he's still not good.
Mm-hmm.
Once you start mashing out level 2s, you want to mash out level 2s? I'm looking at Burn. I mean,
Black Battler.
oh yeah, Black Battler, Delanor, even Will, man. If you're just like specifically looking at level 2s, even Will. But also if you're just looking at add more meter to combo to do more damage, Virgilia, Will, Rosa.
Beatrice. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, so he's none of those characters. He's no meter He's no dump meter into more damage. His neutral, I might even argue, is slightly below average, but he has a good air-to-air game. That's the only partial saving grace. Fucking Angie has a better neutral than this guy. That's saying something.
Hmm.
Like, Delano, I think, has better neutral. Shannon has better neutral. George might actually be one of the worst neutral characters in the game.
Yeah, I've started to come to that conclusion. Yeah.
So, and what does he get for it, right?
Hmm.
Oh man, it's just so difficult to like I know I tend to get a little aggressive and shit on characters. I'm sorry if you think you have your George set up right and it's like, "Oh, this is good." And it's like, "Well, okay. Fair enough." In a vacuum, you could say, "Oh man, it's really cool to do 2A. You go into training mode, right? You do your super jump C and you do your 2A, then 2Bs, and then like 5C, 2C into like 6C or something, right? I don't know if that works, but you end in 2C and 6C, and then you like level 2, and you're like, oh yeah, man, George really can tack on that damage for his partner. Come on, dude. Like people who say that, I think my immediate like first thing is, okay, well there are other characters that do that, man.
Hmm. I
So
think the biggest part is like, yeah, that's not for damage, you know? That's like the real way to get damage on George is like doing the air combo and ending with one of his EXs, preferably the drop kick if you're only going to spend 1 meter. That's pretty sizable damage. But
yeah, it's you're approaching like a point of almost acceptable for spending a meter.
yeah,
Like
that's the real problem that he can't get the knockdown off the air combo, you know? It's like if he could, then it'd be pretty decent.
yeah, because
But
Lucy has that problem. Not to interrupt, but just that immediately jumps out at me, right? Like Lucy has the same, oh, I can't knock you down out of the air. But Lucy has very well defined strengths for having that weakness.
mm,
Is that like better than any other character? I don't know. That's not really
I
anyone's
mean,
like place to say,
I've,
but it's still there. It's still a strength. I don't see what George gains for anything that like his shortcomings.
yeah. I
So,
mean, looking more specifically about the most optimal situation for George, right?
mhm.
You've landed the combo. You're not spending meter for whatever reason, retaining resources. You hit them with the air combo. You do a sizable 1.6 to 1.8k, whatever. They're landing. They flipped out. Um, what is your option? Do a meaty, meaty 5B. It beats throws.
Maybe
Um,
maybe 2A sometimes if you're
yeah,
looking
2A
for
sometimes if you're
reversals.
looking for a reversal.
Hmm.
Um, But yeah, meaty 5B or meaty 2A to bait reversals. And you're like, well, it beats throws, which is a plus. That can be difficult in this game.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true. Yeah.
but you're looking at the situation afterwards. You do it on like frame perfect, 10th active frame. You're plus what? 7 plus 7? That's wow, that's pretty good. Plus 7. It's very difficult in my experience to get all the active frames, but plus 7. But then what do you do with that plus 7? You're going to hit them again, most likely. Do you have a fast overhead? No. You have close 5C, only overhead on the second hit that you cannot cancel into anything until it hits. Um, you could do close 5C, one hit into 3C, which is your fast slow, and get a knockdown. You could tag off that. You could meta. You could level 2, I guess. But you're going to get that low hit for usually minimum reward. Other than that, it's like you're going to do 2A to restart pressure, but it's pressure without a cause. They have Rebel without a cause. Well, Georgia's pressure without a cause because there's no mix up. There's nothing but semi decent frame traps. And you're like relying on attack touch for a mix up, which is just not going to fly in
That's
zero delay.
inconsistent. That's just not
Yeah,
something you can rely on.
in zero delay, especially against experienced players, especially, you know, like not only will that not work, if you start getting crazy and trying to like mix up people to try and open people up with like 2A or 2B, certain players, certain characters will start like punishing you for that, like with reversals or moves or stuff like that. So it it's very puzzling.
As you described this kind of subpar neutral, but still attempt to apply subpar mix-up, two characters that immediately jump out at me are Battler and Evatrice.
Hmm.
Because Battler is like, oh hey, I have this stuff that puts me in a pretty good spot. Plus.
Hmm.
But Battler has that forward momentum, the best normal in the game, 3B, or at least tied, with Lucy 2B and Erica 2B and Rono 6C.
Hmm.
It's like, oh man, 3B, and then Battler also has another amazing normal tie, very plus, right?
Hmm.
And like, if someone tries to grab you or does something on the ground that's crazy, they get hit by tie. It's like, man, this is and he even has like a shitty overhead as well, right? Like
Hmm.
he has his axe kicks or his quarter circle back, and then he also has
Hmm.
the smack him with his suit,
Hmm.
and he has a lot of reasons to like those, not the axe kick as much in zero delay, but the suit thing is actually capable of hitting people because they're just like, man, these 2B and 3B on Battler and this tie is enough to kind of make me put the fear in me. Like I'm the man who constantly wants to challenge people, right? But like,
Hmm.
man, I
It's very scary,
when
challenging battler.
when Battler is like right there, I'm like, I am Lucy, but maybe I'll just block this for a while and see what happens, right? Like, and I'm the kind of person with that killer instinct neutral mentality of like, I don't care if you have 5 meter and I have zero. I'm still gonna like try to just 2A you to poke you out so that I can either run at you and meter you or run at you and block to make you like hesitate whether to make you guess.
Hmm.
So that's coming from me. I know people don't know like my personality or the way I play too well, but that's the type of area I feel very comfortable with, that kind of neutral to neutral game.
Right. And
And
then, yeah, you transfer that to battler. And then you said Evatrice as well.
yeah, where it's, Evatrice doesn't exactly have the greatest normals, but her mix-up game is way better. Her
Hmm.
setup game way better. She
Hmm.
has the ability to confirm from the air off of a knockdown. And unlike George, with his admittedly air kick is or dive kick is amazing, only against the wall. Evatrice has jump 2C, amazing mix-up, one of the best I think. Like
It's pretty good.
it's really nice, and people who are really good at it pick up combos. Um, she gets a lot out of her combo only through doing meta, or even just knocking someone down into throwing down a jelly is more than fucking George ever gets off of anything.
Jelly setup, one of the best in the game.
And on top of all this, her ground neutral game, average at best, maybe a little above. Her potential tools for hitting people around, the net, which is like,
Hmm.
you good tonight, and throws it out. That's a lot of
Hmm.
range, a lot of mix-up
Yep.
potential, very fast low. The
Plus on
slashes
block, plus on hit.
move people forward. Not good against Rono, but everyone else pretty great.
Hmm.
The like slashes, just the big sha, that knocks down. That's a hard knockdown. George would fucking
Hmm.
kill for that. Like,
Yeah.
and it's just massive and goes everywhere.
And
Like,
doesn't, it's not connected to her hurt box at all. Because it has about the same range looking at it from uh, as George's C axe kick. But like I said, it's like a giant sword normal. There's no hurt box in that at all.
and
You
different
know?
variations of it too.
Hmm.
Do you want to do like just the quick one if you think people are jumping? Do you want to do the medium one or the C one? Like
Hmm.
that's all great stuff. And on top of like all these tools, right? I don't know if I said this. If she does get the air knockdown, she doesn't have to land and do 2-2 EX like an idiot. Displace to meter. She can just grab you and throw you down,
Hmm.
and then do one of her assorted overheads or good pressure, or just meta
Hmm.
and fucking grab you.
Hmm.
And as the final coup de grace for George, she has a very good air game.
Hmm.
When I say neutral, I generally refer to like ground-based neutral, but I call her and Burn one of the ladies of the sky. Uh, it's not something that necessarily comes up too often, but the three ladies of the sky are Burn, Erica, excuse me, and Evatrice. They reign supreme in air-to-air combat. They are modern fighter jets, and everyone else, with the exception of like a couple characters with very good air normals or options, are like in fucking hydrogen balloons, right? Like, or helium balloons. Like they
Mm.
just kind of have to submit to the fact that these characters are in the air and superior to them in every way there, barring a few like tools like drill on Lucy or DPs or just really good reads. So, and George doesn't get that. What is the point to George? Why George? Why would I pick
Yeah, it's really
George?
funny actually. Now that you've mentioned it, how Evatrice basically does everything George does, but better.
He
You
can
know,
never be his
he
brother,
always
dude.
was. He was always a mama's boy.
Well, what do you
Yeah,
think, Pete? Like, I mean, I know we're talking a lot, but like,
I think Beat
I
is
mean,
still. Oh no, Beat's back.
no, I've been back. Yeah, I said hello.
Hello.
happy birthday and the like.
I don't know what I can add to George being bad.
Yeah,
George
you
is
play
pretty good.
George. What is your experience playing George? Let's start with that.
Um,
When you play
the
George, how do you feel? How do you look for an advantage? How do you leverage that advantage?
50-50 wake up. Not playing him very often.
Okay,
Yeah,
Nice enough
okay.
you can
We're
rely
not
on.
talking game theory. We're talking you've picked George and you're stuck.
Stuck in what? Pressure or just
No, you're
neutral?
stuck
stuck
playing
playing
George.
him.
Oh,
Jesus.
of course. Um, uh, Try and go into 2C. Land 2C.
Okay.
That's the game plan. Also, I was thinking of like a mix-up with George recently, but that's different.
Hmm.
But yeah, when I play George, it's like dive kick and 2C. Those are like what I rely on always.
Those are good things to rely on
Yeah,
as far
especially
as
since
George is
everything
good.
is super inconsistent and shit. Like 5B and 5C, not being able to do shit. Or I guess 5B is okay, but still, that 5C. I wish George had a real 5C. That shit is garbo.
Yeah, the 2C and dive kick are the only and roll are the only like unique
Yeah, and roll
aspects to
for the
George.
50-50.
Yeah, like you said. Those
Oh
are the
my
three
goodness.
only unique and powerful aspects to him that are good.
I feel like I've just had a revelation actually. I have been racking my brains around George's frame data uh, for the past week or so, maybe more. It's so bizarre in so many different ways, but most especially is his command normals, as we've discussed. Like, what is the purpose of them? Why were they added to the game? 6C, obviously, combo tool, whatever. You know, not useful on block at all. Basically, even if you mediate, I've tried. But what is the purpose of 6A and 6B? They seem so superfluous. Did they literally just add them in order to have three command normals? And especially, what is the purpose of being able to feint them when they all have the same feint frame data, except for 6B, which for some reason has two more frames of recovery, apparently. Um, but I think having this discussion I have just had with what Beat just said, I have just had an interesting revelation. So not too long ago, maybe half a week ago, me and Zariat discovered through doing some math that certain command normals in the game have an increased level of block and hit stun. Um, 6As always have a certain amount, or A moves in general have a certain amount of hidden block stun. B moves have a certain amount. C moves have a certain amount. And it's all usually the same. Well, Georgia's command normals actually have an increased level. So 6A actually has the block and hit stun of a B move.
Oh
Funnily
yeah.
enough, hmm?
Oh no, I was remembering this
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah. Funnily enough, it actually has the block stun of a B move, but it has the property of an A move where the block stun and the hit stun are the same. That's for pretty much all A moves, actually. Um, so that's kind of interesting. But basically, a lot of the thing is like you look at George, me as a player of George, I'm like, my good option, like Beat said, 2C. It's basically the best thing he can do in any situation. Landing a 2C is unequivocally good for him. So, what is an opponent's natural inclination at that point? Well, obviously, I'm going to parry touch it because it's going to happen eventually. Of course, there's also jumping over it and various other things, but like parry touch is a constant fear, especially against Beat. Beat loves to parry touch 2C. He'll do it every single time.
Indeed.
And
I've seen it, man. I've seen it.
there's no reason not to. Honestly, if we're speaking honestly and openly here, I don't see a reason not to. It's not like it's a particularly slow 2C, but it is reactable, I feel, in pretty much all situations, unless you're predicting something else for whatever reason.
So as
So,
a little caveat here, not to derail too much, the only reason I don't parry touch 2C is because I know that George's neutral game is so shitty that I can just hold jump and probably get out and then just beat him and save the meter. But yeah,
yeah.
that's how not afraid of George I am with my character.
So, I live in constant fear while playing George of being parry touch 2C.
Oh
Um,
gosh.
and there's not really much you can do to stop that. It's like you can do an early axe kick, maybe hit, but like the thing is, Beat doesn't do it predictably. It's not like I do 2B, wait a second, and he's going to press touch, and I can punish a neutral tag. He's going to wait until he sees 2C coming out because it's so slow. So it's
Yeah,
like,
typical.
how exactly do you get around that? Not a lot of options, basically. But there is something interesting. And maybe this is actually more applicable to John from what he just said, honestly, if we're speaking here. But uh, I have been toying with the idea of canceling into the command normals a bit more. Um, the frame data is awful, but frame data doesn't mean much as long as it lands and you cancel it. You know what I'm saying? 2B is a terrible normal with terrible frames, but as long as you cancel into 2C, it doesn't matter, right? As long as the 2B hits and you cancel into 2C, it doesn't matter. That's 17 frames of recovery. So, so it is a bit interesting that perhaps after conditioning players, if you can land those command normals with their altered block stun and altered hit stun, no, that's less important. It would change up the cadence of his pressure, because if you do 5B into 2C, there's like a certain window in which you could jump out or parry touch. But if you do 6B into 2C, 6B has was it like seven frames more hit block stun. So that's a different window, a different frame window in which you have to look for the jump or look for the parry touch or whatever you're doing to punish. So that's kind of an interesting idea, but at the same time, you can't like the problem with George at the end of the day, to kind of come to a conclusion or bring everything to a point, more say, is that everything he does, nothing is guaranteed, which is what I generally like in a character. I like having stuff that I can count on and rely upon, and know that in this situation they're powerful. But with George, the only thing that ever is like that is 2C, and as we've established, there are several ways around that. So it's very silly how everything you do on George relies on you outthinking your opponent and them also making a mistake. I'm usually fine with a character being one way or the other, right? It's oh, I outplayed him, now I can punish him, or oh, he made a mistake, now I can punish that mistake because I was patient. But George is like an unholy combination of both of these, like, which you would consider flaws almost of a character, right? Like the win conditions of a character, and he's both of them in one, and it's very hard to see, like where he finds those opportunities.
Hmm.
Yeah, especially when you compare it to like. Well, I guess there isn't really many characters in the game that can just 50-50 like as reliably as George does. But every single character, or not every single character, half the cast can just do a 2C like George does and get so much more off of it. If you
Yeah.
want to just have a good 2C, you know.
I would actually, in the case of if we're talking like, 'cause maybe this is the one area I'm interested to explore with mixing someone up. I think the only character that compares to George,
Lambda.
yeah, Evatrice
Oh,
and Lambda.
In terms of mix up.
Yeah, if we're just looking strictly at we're going to mix people up. Lambda can like 2C and then potentially run in and jump 2C.
Hmm.
Again, I know this is all like we're taking out like the bounds of execution here and stuff, right?
Hmm.
And even like the lambda pressure, the same sort of mix-up occurs that happens with George, where here's my 2C, I'm gonna do other shit.
Hmm.
Evatrice with jelly, overheads, lows, jump 2C on Evatrice is really fast. Is it a 50-50?
Hmm.
Not sure, but I think she has enough options that kind of work to, because
Her fastest
looking,
low is 2B at 8 frames. Pretty standard. I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah, looking at like, well, what else happens after, you know, just the mix-up? It's like, yeah, I guess specifically George kind of does technically if you're just looking solely at my mix-up and, oh, my mix-up hit. But then you start thinking, okay, well, shit, if you really just want to have like the good mix-up, play Beatrice and just practice that 6B meaty.
Hmm.
Shit's ridiculously fast, right? Like,
Hmm.
and then you're gonna get so much more off of
Yeah.
it. So it's just and yeah, even if you're just looking, okay, no, I only want mix up, John. Shut the fuck up. We only are talking solely mix up. Bunny,
Hmm.
Eva, uh, and Lambda. Bunny, very arguable, but and Delano, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just funny because even as a straight mix up character, he doesn't shine there either.
Hmm.
I keep coming to this conclusion of why would I pick George over anyone else? Like, because the only time I ever really depart from my canon and Lucy is whenever something is particularly shiny, right? Like
Hmm.
canon battler to me is like, well, some situations Lucy isn't gonna do well, no matter how good I am. Like Erica Rono, and it's like, well, battler can perform, or
Hmm.
ability synergy between Beatrice and Virgilia. And I think with every single character, if you just asked me, hey John, would you ever play this character and why? I could come up with a reason, or even just something gimmicky and fun for every character in the cast, except for George.
Hmm. Wowzers.
Even Shannon and Angie, I could come up with something. Like Angie and Rono is kind of a fun team. A couple counter hits, and you stun.
Hmm. Just a meta combo and you stun.
Yeah, so I mean that's for Rono, that's pretty cool. That's not
Hmm.
a circumstance that happens very much for the guy. So that that's extraordinary.
Hmm.
One of the few instances where Angie kind of like a team with Angie on it becomes not shit without just being really good with Jessica or Will, I should say. And Shannon with her zoning capability can be frustrating. and even she has some slight mix-up potential. Siegel keeps her safe, solid reversals. Not the greatest normals, but at least like 2B is a very low profile. Very good anti-air options, which is not something you see on any character ever. Like just throwing out trays of shit and getting the knockdown. Even if they can recover, is still powerful.
Hmm.
And just with Beatrice, even if you suck, just throw out EXs. Her EXs are solid. Give her meter with Virgilia. So, but then I think,
Well,
what team goes together with George? What's the killer George team, right?
oh, okay. If that's the question, then I believe I have the answer. The only team that I think George is good on is Rosa George that I've been practicing. And it's really funny because it's such a like specific pinpoint grand strategy reason to have George on a team that I
Really?
you'd probably say it's very quintessentially me because it's practically theoretical to be honest.
All right, let's hear
But
it, man.
well, it's pretty simple. It's just George level 2 guard breaks people mid combo, denies touch. Rosa denies touch. If you achieve the snowball, and it's possible. I don't think I've really gotten it. Well, I played against some of the better players, and I've still managed to make it work, but it happens less often against them. But if you achieve the snowball, you can literally go for like minutes where the enemy cannot touch at all. Can't burst, can't neutral, can't attack, touch, anything. Um, and I feel like that's fairly powerful. You know, that's fairly powerful. And you could argue Rosa Will accomplishes mostly the same, grand strategy idea. And I would agree with you. And Will's a better character in pretty much every way, to be honest. But at the same time, there are certain windows where George's touch deniability would be more powerful because Will's touch deniability is basically I'm going to combo you, but
Yeah, yeah.
George's touch, at least it allows you to pressure people and um, mix up people without being touched, which is basically something that George really needs, in my opinion. So that's nice. At the same time, is it a good team? No, not really. It's a fun team. It works more than any George team that I could think of, I would say. At the same time, it's like solid usable tier. You know what I'm saying? Which is probably the
Mm.
best he's going to get,
Hey
unfortunately.
man, that's like
One
almost
one
a little bit
specific.
better than Anjay.
Yeah,
Hmm.
like one specific doodad.
Hmm.
All right, I don't buy it, man. Uh, I guess I agree with your assessment, but I would almost say personally, okay,
Hmm.
that's enough, just barely scraping by, okay, to say, hey, this is enough to do a team. This
Hmm.
is just barely in like you're on the line though, man. Like I don't
Hmm.
know if that's a good enough reason to play that team. But okay. It does do one thing unique.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
Well, for a final point, let's just sum all our ideas together here, and let's start with the original topic here. Be about well, uh, why do you guys think George is so powerful against people who are less experienced? And what's maybe the best way to get around him? Because I feel like that's something that a lot of people would enjoy hearing.
Well, that's something I don't really know because I haven't played George against anyone new. So
Well, I mean, like playing against George.
yeah, what's your George murdering tech?
Yeah.
me?
No, the guy who
Yeah.
was asking about it. Yes, fucking you.
Well, my George murdering tech is Guard Touch 2C, and Well, Guy doesn't really do the roll mix up very often, so you don't really have to block that, or I don't. But
Yeah, because I expect you
that might
guys to
be
like mash 2A out of it.
mm, or
Yeah, you
grab.
can actually mash out of it. I didn't realize.
I think
If you
if you go for
okay,
the OTG, yeah.
there
Otherwise,
is one roll you can do where you will meaty 2A and it'll beat mash. Every other roll you do will lose to mash every time. So yeah, it's like if they do the meaty roll, then mashing will lose. But like no one ever goes to that because they're like, look at me, I'm going to cross you up. Isn't this so hard to block? It's like, well, no, you're crossing me up every time, obviously.
also if you roll far away enough where they can't hit you, I guess it's. But
Yeah. It's like if they poke with something that's other than 2A, there are situations, yeah, where you can roll and they whiff and you can punish. I've only had that happen like a couple times this past week. It did happen. I do remember it happening at least once, but questionable.
mm,
Hmm.
see,
Yeah, you see, because that's even funny enough how bad that is. Because I expect you guys to mash. Uh, like I didn't actually know about the meaty 2A role until I started playing against these other people, and I felt more comfortable going for it more often. And yeah, like I didn't actually know that you could do the fast roll and meaty 2A, and it'll beat mashes. I just thought like you would just lose to mashes every time because I remember testing roll setups long time ago, and that was my conclusion.
mm,
And it was probably delay or something, or I wasn't doing it fast enough. But yeah, so like it's really funny how I used to think it was even worse than it actually is, or and like it's pretty funny to me how like the fact that George can actually get a media on that is such a good thing for him. Like the most basic, it's like, oh cool, this setup doesn't automatically lose to mashing like I thought it did. That's so good for you, George. Good job, buddy. You're doing it. You're making it happen.
Um,
jeez.
my advice, uh, basically, I'm going to say no one in the game has a better neutral than you, or than George if you're fighting him. No one.
Mm-hmm.
At worst, you're equal with like a Shannon situation. So don't be afraid of him. Just beat him with neutral and normals. It's not hard.
Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid.
Good advice. Yeah, that's pretty much what I would say.
And
Don't be afraid.
worst case scenario, what he parries you and level twos you. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
He gets 1k or 2k damage for 3 fucking meter or something. Who
Mm-hmm.
cares? The return on investment for George is Garbo. All you really need to do is not give him meter by hitting him with patience and just realize that 2C while plus can be jumped out of. And there's
Mm-hmm.
almost nothing George can do other than 2C and then immediately do another move to cancel out the advantage, just 2C in assumption that you're going to jump.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key point where, I become a savage animal and decide how I'm going to strike. Uh, that's it. That's that's the breaking
That's it.
point. Like if he rolls at you, you can block it. Get used to the way his voice call out sounds when he goes further. Uh, that's it. He's he's not a he's not a problem. Don't get flustered if he mixes you up a few times. Keep blocking.
Mm-hmm.
Don't spam reversals against him because if you reversal him and he rolls to the other side, you are going to feel very silly unless you're Lambda, where your reversal just spews everywhere.
Yeah.
Or Shannon. But even then, he can still do the short roll. Just don't reversal. It's not a big deal. There's no killer mix-up. Just block the attack touch. Eventually, you're going to get out of the pressure. You know, he might hit you a few
Mhm.
times, but just realize that that string of 500 to 700 damage a few times isn't going to make you lose a match because that's his strength. Whereas you
Mhm.
should be playing a team that should be able to hit him, attack touch, hit him again, meta, hit him some more, and get more off of your meter spent.
Mhm.
So that's my 2 cents for whenever you get into the bad situation with George. But playing
All
the
right.
neutral game in OMK in and of itself is it's a problem, or it can be a problem because if you're just really good at the neutral game and someone else is still learning, it can just seem kind of frustrating. But yeah, stick with it, man. You're not gonna get better by not fighting him or challenging him. So don't be afraid. It's just George.
Just George. Yeah. That's some pretty good advice. Well, that was a good discussion. I'm glad we had it. Uh, I feel
Yeah,
like that would be really helpful for a lot of the new players and stuff like that.
yeah, man. If anyone wants to listen to a 2 hour and 45 minute podcast, I mean, it's always funny because a lot of podcasters I've heard say, "Man, no one's gonna listen to this," and then you know, like a million people, million views on the video. Say, yeah,
Hmm.
you can just kind of
Well,
tune out and listen to it. So
yeah, well,
Yeah, it's got a lot of interesting info on them usually too.
yeah,
yeah,
Usually.
if you're
it's not
interested
something
in OMK, you're not gonna find very many groups of dudes willing to just spew forth info and theoretical stuff and practical applications and so on.
hmm
Mm.
got me on the theoretical, John on the practical, and Beat on the animal.
Hmm. Well, yeah, I think that's, excuse me, a good spot to wrap up here. I'm sure we could probably continue talking for 3 more hours, but we'll see how things
Perhaps,
go.
yeah, another
Maybe
time.
if anyone has some decent topics, I'm probably gonna throw this on YouTube. See if anyone's
Yeah.
interested. If you have topics, by all means, PM them, probably to me, uh, and then I'll relay it to them or they'll relay it to me. Don't do it to Beat. He's really flaky and inconsistent. Um, hopefully this doesn't get millions of views and we don't get spammed. That'd be annoying, right? As if that'll happen. But
Mm-hmm.
leave a
I don't
comment
think
or
there are
something
a
like that.
million OMK players in the world,
But we're just so endearing that they'll listen to us anyway.
dude. And
The
then
fuck is
there
an
will be,
OMK?
a million OMK players in the world.
OMK at Evo, dude, it's a new release.
Oh no.
Dude, no, they were talking about that before we leave. Uh, I think it was Zari or maybe it was Comey, but they were like talking with Brett, and he was like, "Yeah, dude, if you want to bring a setup for OMK, we'll run it." That was for like anime Evo though, not real Evo.
Yeah. It's a big difference.
Real Evo.
Hey, man, you know,
We'll have to fucking
first
play in
you,
the bathroom of someone's fucking.
you gotta pay your dues in anime Evo before you can make it to the big leagues. All right, you gotta do some lines of OMK in the bathroom, and they'll let you on the stage.
Yes, of course. It's the rite of passage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, anyway, if anyone's interested or has interesting topics, we are willing to listen. Uh,
Yeah,
but if it's not interesting, we won't talk about it. But if it is, we will. So there you go. I
yeah.
think
But for now,
what
just
what is
time to
something people can
leave.
expect though before we sign off? Maybe like some character specific stuff next time, some other general ideas or.
Hmm. Um, well, we talked about a specific character this time. Maybe we should talk about another problem character next time.
Yeah, like
Discuss
Lucy.
them in
Yeah,
depth.
Lucy's
Yeah.
so bad.
Sounds good. Yeah, sounds good. Lucy, worst character in the game.
Okay,
Um,
I think that's an idea.
yeah, I feel like going through one character at least per sesh, discussing them in detail. Really breaking them down can help a lot of people out. So that sounds like a good idea, and maybe some other stuff too.
Yeah, sure.
Mm.
Well, um, I think that's about it for us. We've been yakking on here.
Hmm.
But
That'll
yeah,
be the three of us signing off.
Yeah. Hopefully, the first annual podcast of three guys playing OMK,
You know,
talking about it, will be.
Hey, I'm not a guy. Guy's over there.
it's
Oh, wow.
me, Guy. Hello.
You're hilarious. Wow. Jeez.
Spaghetti and meatballs.
No, took one brain cell to come up with that one. Hope you guys enjoyed.
That's all you got.
That's all he has left.
Bad drinking. Anyway, yeah, we're signing out. Hopefully it was enjoyable. We might do another one, maybe not.
All right. Au revoir.